One, I wanted to count together.
You
Welcome.
just don't count.
No, shut up, both of you, all right? Shut up, you children, and welcome to Overwatch 101. This is where you're getting your lessons for today. With these three wonderful professors that we have available here. It's Plat Chat
Three
Overwatch.
most professional people.
The most professional people involved in Overwatch, I would say. Us three.
That's a good point.
Your head looks like the moon when you do that. Like, actually, it's so big and round. It's beautiful. You look like a planet.
You
It's
haven't seen him
fantastic.
in a while. You don't know. I mean,
What do you
his
mean I
head
haven't
could
seen
be
him in a
that
while?
size.
You haven't seen anyone in a while, Matt. You do not
I
go
saw
outside
Johnny.
your house.
I saw Johnny a bit ago.
No,
When did I see you?
I don't think I've seen you.
What do you mean? I went to your place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was pretty forgettable.
Wasn't that like 2 months ago, Matt? Is that the last
yeah, it was
time you
like
went
in June
outside
or
your
something.
house?
June, May.
I
think it
took
was
you
May,
to the
actually.
vet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty good. All right. Looking after the small animal that you're responsible for.
You know,
I can appreciate that.
People, I think, during all of this, they realize like things they can live without, and I realize I can just live without all of you guys. That I don't have to be around any of you guys to exist. I still
appreciate
enjoy
that,
you
man.
guys, but yeah, I figured, you know, like how you rely on Bren for all of your kind of content and fun and insight, and just kind of like you just leech off of him, you know.
Okay. Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
yeah.
exist without him, but
Yeah.
I can exist without everybody.
Sure, yeah. No, I want to see Matt do a solo cast for the grand final. I want to send this to Mitch and the rest of the Overwatch
Yeah.
League and just say, put him out on an island, just give him one headset for the grand final, and that's it. It's just
Yeah, I'll
Matt
do an
with Matt.
ASMR cast. I'll wear like a pigeon head and I'll just bash my head against the mic, kind of like
What do you think ASMR is? What are you talking about? A pigeon head?
Did you not see? There was some viral clip. I think it was like I want to say it was Amaranth. She had a pigeon head on. She was hitting her
Oh
head
my God.
against an ear thing.
Oh
yeah.
no,
Oh,
I did
yeah.
not see that. I'm not a tier 3 sub, Matt. I didn't realize that you were a frequenter of the.
Neither am I. You know, you get exposed to some things when you watch Rich Campbell stream. You know, it kind of sucks you down a deep path.
Yeah, that's fair enough, honestly. It really is. All right, well, the Countdown Cup finished, and we've got some
that
banging
happened.
stuff to talk about this week. There was also, like, some stuff popping off in terms of, you know, MVP, end of season, all of that kind of stuff. So we got a packed show, and I'll tell you who's presenting this packed show this week. You're damn right. It's a sponsored episode by Manscaped. Manscaped... They've been good enough to sponsor this month's episode as well. We have a code if any of you are interested. You can save 20% off and you get free shipping as well when you use code PLATCHAT at manscaped.com. And they have one of their big things that they're doing this month and last month when we did a activation with them is their Lawnmower 4.0, which is the superior way with a ceramic blade of being able to shave your downstairs
It's
areas.
true.
And listen, okay, they don't want me to tell you this, but it's just hair. I mean, in theory, you could buy a separate one and use it anywhere else. The whole point of it is you don't want to be using the same shaver on your junk as you do on your head. But I can tell you that because they sent me an extra one, Beth used it to shave her head, and it worked perfectly fine. She's got like a fucking banging undercut. Not the same one. Remember, that's the whole point. I have one for myself. Just keeping things tidy, making sure that nothing gets too warm, you know, in the summer months. It's very humid here in Texas.
It's got the LED light in case you're in the dark.
It actually does. It really does.
It does.
I mean, you say in case you're in the dark, but also, you know, most people don't have a spotlight shining at their gooch. And so sometimes you just need an extra bit of lighting down there. Some people live in, you know, kind of dingy apartments rather than your silver spoon looking mansion, motherfucker, where you've got 360 surround lighting for your shower. You know, some people have a normal setup.
Surround lighting for the show. That's a very interesting. Yeah. I haven't met somebody with that.
It's also fully waterproof. I mean, it's clearly the most superior way that I've seen across the internet to kind of manscape. I mean, to use the literal verb.
I got sent an older version of the lawnmower a while ago.
The 3.0.
Because I did something with Manscaped. Yeah. I can say the 4.0 is a big improvement. I know a lot of the features we just showed, the light, I used the new one on my hair.
Bloody
I
hell.
have the old one.
Bloody hell. I mean, okay, all right. I do want to point out it's supposed to be used for your junk. So, I mean,
Lift up your shirt. Josh shaves his chest with it.
I mean, I don't, but you'd be
Yeah,
forgiven for
look.
thinking so. There's
Wait, so
nothing
you
that
don't
grows.
shave your chest at all?
No, I just don't. I don't have any hair there at all. I mean, some people do. I'm
Oh.
sure some people do shave their chest with it. But
He
anyway.
had it lasered off, John.
Anyway,
He had it
listen,
lasered off.
if you're using scissors on your hair, perfectly fine. If you're using scissors on your chest hair, perfectly fine. Do not use scissors on your balls. Buy a
That is
Manscaped product.
dangerous.
Use code Plat Chat for 20% off and free shipping, and your balls will thank you.
Woo!
Okay, let's get into the Overwatch stuff, though, from this week. We had kind of a banging tournament. I want to start here, though, before we get into any of our, like, meat of the topic. Go on then, Jonathan. Give me your piece.
What?
Did we not have a banging tournament? Because I was going to ask you the
man.
question, are things better? Are things more interesting without Dallas and Shanghai? Or did that take away from it a bit?
I mean, sorry, I'm trying to buy a JPEG real fast for real money. Don't worry about it. I was going into this tournament so excited, and I like tweeted out, and I was like, "Is this gonna be the best tournament ever? Like the teams are so even, very fun gameplay." I mean, going into the tournament, we talked about it last week. We thought that all of these teams would be kind of like close, and they all
Yeah,
had a chance to win
I
it.
did, yeah.
And then we just had like the day two, we had 3-3-0s. It was so disappointing. I wanted like 15 maps in one day. I wanted reverse sweeps, all of that. And I get it. Like the Gladiators Chengdu, not trying to get ahead of myself. The Chengdu Gladiators kind of rivalry we had over the weekend. It was epic. The matches were amazing. But I was hoping that Seoul would be able to be a bit more competitive. Pelican and Atlanta, it kind of sucks. It is what it is, but
That's your first mistake. You believe in Seoul all the time. For me, I never believe in them, so I never had any expectations for them going into the weekend. So I kind of expected that to happen. I thought this was a really good event. I think it was a nice kind of opportunity to see the teams not Dallas and Shanghai. It really kind of felt like a little bit like coming into it, like this was either Chengdu or Atlanta's time to break out.
I felt like it, yeah. I really did think so.
But obviously the Gladiators just seized the opportunity. They almost beefed it at the end, but I mean they really did a fantastic job. I also think it entered some very interesting questions towards like playoffs, right? If the meta is now vastly different, do Shanghai and Dallas now play catch up to these teams in terms of like quality of play? Because I do think, like you mentioned, Johnny, maybe some matches weren't, the closest, but I thought the quality of play was really strong throughout the weekend, really from all the teams, even Seoul.
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, all right.
Oh, Josh? Sorry, I thought you were going to chime in there. I didn't know if you liked that or not.
No. I was just waiting to hear your opinion on that too, because I think I don't know. I feel like a lot of people would have been disappointed with what was showcased from like Seoul and Atlanta when they kind of got rocked in those matches too. But I do think it was more so Gladiators stepping up rather than the other teams. It was difficult to be able to. It was difficult to be able to tell from the outside. But I don't know whether we did predict Gladiators going out in 2, but that's what my bracket looked like. My bracket looked like Gladiators going out in 2. I think we had them going to like
in finals.
the next
I
round.
had Chengdu.
Right.
I had Chengdu Gladiators finals, but I had Chengdu winning.
Well, I just felt like I'd seen some great stuff from Gladiators, but I hadn't seen it all the time, and I was worried whether they'd be able to pull it off, and they did, and I think that was the most impressive part about this. But to just talk for a moment about the Dallas-Shanghai thing, do you think the weight of this tournament gets mitigated slightly? We were discussing this last week, I believe, that a lot of people would poo-poo the final Countdown Cup and be like, it doesn't mean as much. Jonathan, that was your point of view as well, is that you did think it didn't mean quite as much. When you look at kind of the level of play that the teams were showcasing, were you swayed in one direction or another? Do you still have that same opinion that, the big dogs weren't really here?
I think, in a couple of years, when we look back at the Wikipedia page, I think that some people will remember this as a tournament that Dallas and Shanghai didn't try. It's just like, like that was a tournament they didn't appear because they sandbagged or whatever. I think after seeing the matches being played out, I think you could make that argument for Seoul and Atlanta. I think you can be like, well, Seoul and Atlanta, they got in here because Dallas and Shanghai, they didn't try their hardest. Atlanta, not so much, because obviously in qualifiers, they were amazing with Pelican. So that they were really good there. But for Seoul, I think you could make that argument in a way. I think Gladiators and Chengdu, I think them getting first and second, I think they showcase such a high level of play that the argument that Dallas and Shanghai would have beaten them, I don't really buy that anymore. I think that
Well,
Gladiators definitely earned this stage title. And in hindsight, I don't think we can say that Dallas and Shanghai would have stood a chance of what against what they brought out.
I mean, would it be fair to even say like Dallas Dallas kind of peaked really early, and maybe they're like, obviously it doesn't seem like they really wanted to go to Hawaii this time, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do think there's a case where you look, and excluding Hawaii, right? The Gladiators, since their really poor first part of the season, have been very strong. Same with Atlanta. Those teams, a lot of the times when you talk about playoffs and the end of the season, it's really the teams kind of hitting their stride then that end up taking it and performing well, not the teams that have peaked at the beginning.
Yeah.
Outside of really kind of the shock, like for those years, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean the same can't particularly be said of the Shanghai Dragons, though, right? Because they
no,
have
exactly.
only seemed to get better over the course of the season. But I think it's a very interesting point, just in general. Like it's hard to say who Dallas would have qualified over, whether it was Atlanta or Gladiators. If Dallas were performing really well, they would probably have qualified over Glads, if anything, and they ended up being the team that won it. To me, a lot of these kind of thought experiments showcase how volatile Overwatch really is, where you can miss out, especially in a season like this when you only have 4 regular season matches. You can miss out by a hair's breadth on being in the qualifiers, or you can have a close match where you dip out. And maybe if you had made it to Hawaii, you might have won the whole event. Like there's so many scenarios like that where the what ifs do seem to make a relatively big difference. And I don't know. It's very hard to speculate about how good those teams would be if they'd really tried, because they were taking it loose on practice.
I agree
I
with
didn't
you
come away
with,
from it feeling like the tournament had been spoiled. That was my
no.
biggest fear, is that I'd come out of it feeling like, oh well, these teams were just kind of shit. Like they would have been rolled by Shanghai. But I actually came out of this tournament thinking really fucking high level Overwatch being played. I'm so happy that like Chengdu was still doing well. Gladiators stepped up. There's some really cool narratives heading into the postseason. It didn't feel like a B tier event.
No, I think what you kind of learn from this, like, I agree with you. I think like Shanghai is the team that had, out of those like Shanghai and Dallas, that has been getting better throughout the season. Where like you look at that and say, okay, like, they probably could have been there instead of Seoul. But what I think you kind of cemented in this, right, is that Chengdu is the second best team in APAC. I think it'll even be difficult for Seoul to kind of make it out of APAC in the playoffs. And then I think for NA, with Dallas, what they got, first, second, then third, right? Is that kind of their trajectory?
Yes, first, second, third, and then didn't qualify. So I don't even know what.
And didn't qualify. So like they've been on the downturn as the rain and the Gladiators have been kind of rising. And it's super interesting. I mean, they only end up with that first seed in NA because of the league points that they got for winning the first event.
Well, and also
Otherwise,
coming second in the second event, like that.
Right.
They haven't really, in all of the Hawaii visits they've gone to, they've been the best Western team.
Yes. I do think, though, there's a case that Atlanta and the Gladiators are starting to catch them, though.
Sure.
At the right time.
Let's talk about the Seoul Dynasty. I want to start with the team that ended up in 4th place at the moment. You're watching them play right now. They've been extremely consistent throughout APAC. A lot of people, rating them highly because their regular season performances have been good. In some ways, they're kind of, this is going to sound a little batshit to say this, but they're kind of like the shock of APAC. Both teams make the finals last year. Both teams look a little underwhelming. They don't go to stage finals, apart from this performance from Seoul at the very end of the year. But they still have an extraordinarily good regular season record, and they were able to get the wins in the regular season when it mattered to push them to a very high placement. That's the one-to-one comparison is not exactly there, but Seoul did not perform anywhere near as well as I was hoping from them in this showcase in the Countdown Cup. I actually thought they might be able to run teams really close. I thought even if they went out 0-2, they'd be able to put out some really close games. They just
actually thought they could as well.
They looked limp.
I was hoping they'd come in like lights out, be this like smart team that learned how to play against the likes of Chengdu or Atlanta even, and like figure out those compositional changes. Instead, they were the team that kind of like blundered their compositions, like putting Tuyu on Zarya. It makes sense in a Winston.
They played the fucking Mayu against the Orisa thing and just turbo fed everything.
Yeah, the Prophet May
Um,
was not getting anything done.
the Prophet May, and then also like I really hated how Tuyu swapped to Zarya sometimes against did they change to Hunters? Yeah, it must have been. Yeah,
Yes, I
Rollback,
think he
yeah.
was. I mean, he's on Zarya
Um,
now as well.
And it just felt like they were a bit lost in the matches sometime. Animo, I don't think he had a great performance on Brig at all this tournament. He seemed a bit lost in that matter. It works, I guess, if you're just pocketing creative and trying to keep him alive, but he lacked. He felt very one-dimensional with his defensive Brigitte play, and I felt like he didn't really help the team in that regard. When you gotta adapt to some of these teams, you gotta be smart about your compositions and your play. And I felt like Seoul Dynasty, they just didn't. They just weren't as smart or as adaptable or well-rounded as some of these other teams. They really felt out of touch.
I did like how explosive Prophet and Fit still felt.
Yeah.
Prophet,
That was a win condition.
But the thing is, when you had to get them on the right characters as well, you had to get them on the right heroes. Because I mean, when Fitz is playing any kind of long-range hit scan, or he's playing the Sombra, he's incredibly good. And then when Prophet was playing like Farah, for example, he was taking it to Pelican is playing on high ping, right? He was playing on super high ping. But he was taking it to Pelican, doing pretty much 50-50 in terms of Farah duels, and then getting much better barrages off. And that was giving them some serious win conditions in fights. It just feels like the team is powered by their DPS and they have very little else. Creative was all right, but it feels... I know I was getting really mauled in at old Seoul Dynasty when they were all over the place every week, but they did have higher highs.
Yeah, I mean, well, what? Animo, like, when he kind of left NYXL, did anyone... I mean, I thought he was good for New York, but I didn't really kind of think he was, like a big difference maker. Like, it's not the same kind of... well, I mean, he didn't play that much this season because of, like, the meta, but, like, it's not the same caliber of, like, getting a player like Moth, right, for the Gladiators.
Well, he's a straight downgrade from Toby as well, who he was coming in to replace.
Right.
Yeah, I think he carried a lot of like star potential with like his name because he was on that New York Excel roster. But correct me if I'm wrong here. Didn't like Animals play like really suit New York and their play style, being able to rely around Jonak a lot?
He was very defensive.
Yeah, and I think we're just past that now, where you need to be more well-rounded in your play. And like you look at some of these main supports that are amazing these days, like skewed. I mean, everyone can't be skewed, but like,
Sure, yeah.
But I feel like Animo is really falling behind compared to some other main supports. And like you said, like Toby, if Toby was still on this team, I'd be like, well, Toby's not the best main support in the world. I'm not going to be an Avast level simp here for Toby, but I do think it could have potentially gone better with Toby than Animo here.
I do feel like the comparison of the shock is good because, you know, some people would obviously just look at the records and be like, both of these teams are good. But when you kind of watch them and go by like the eye test, you can clearly see that, like, yeah, they may win, but there's something missing here kind of from the top. Where you look at some of these teams in APAC, like, just by the fact of them having Profit and Fitz and empowering them, they're going to beat half of the teams in APAC pretty handily every time, right? I mean...
Yeah, and I mean, that works, right?
Right,
but
it does not work against this top level of play, though, when the other team has Kai and Pelican. You know, you're not playing against some of the people on the Valiant or the Guangzhou Charge, and I know Prophet can just turn on Spotify and just kill everybody and
this matchup kind of worked for that, right? Because both teams played so slow.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're gonna win one matchup, it'd probably be this one. But if you're telling me you're just gonna sit still and play slow and rely on Fitz and Profit against like Chengdu, against the Gladiators, I have a hard time seeing your win condition.
When Atlanta saw them come out with the May, they were probably just fucking laughing. They were like, "What?"
This is very odd, though. I don't understand at all why Prophet came out on May here. I don't even understand like what it tries to accomplish. By the way, whenever he was playing May, he was leaping into the front line and using like his ice block and his wall to try and make space for his tanks. I've never seen a May play like that before. Like,
I casted this.
Watch him in this final fight. I swear he jumps into the front line using ice block to make space for Gesture and 2U because they don't understand how to make space like based off timing and cooldowns themselves.
when I was casting this, I was like, this is insane. Like, he's like one of the best tracers like that we have. Like, he's just so good at so many other heroes. And you put him on Mei, who has not been played at all, really, throughout any of this, and for like zero reason. Like, I think I was talking to Scott about it, and he was like, well, like he's trying to, stop the aggression from Atlanta. And I was like, they're playing like Arisa Hanzo. Like, I like what is like, are they just trying to run down Gator? Like, I mean, that's not really gonna work. He doesn't even use the Blizzard here, if I remember correctly. He never actually even gets it off. It's just
it was pretty sad. It was a sad performance, man. But the thing is, Seoul have now managed to lock their spot into play-ins. They lost that guaranteed playoff spot that they would have potentially had over Chengdu because they lost the direct head-to-head match against them. They got clean sweep. They got dominated in that game, by the way. Just wasn't even close. But the virtue of them, or rather, because they lost that game, they're now probably going to have to face Philly to even get into playoffs. This constant rivalry that we've had between Seoul Dynasty and Philadelphia Fusion is going to rear its head again because that game, I mean, it's almost inevitable, right? Who else is even going to make it there? The Sparkers look kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what? New York and Guangzhou are on the wrong side of the playing bracket, aren't they? Or did New York sneak in?
No, they're not in.
No, they're not in.
Even
So
right,
APAC is only a 3-team plan. So Philly would play Hangzhou, and then the winner plays Seoul.
Right, exactly. And so it seems inevitable that you're going to get another Seoul-Philly match to see who progresses, which we've seen all year long. Those can go the full distance. Both of those teams are really evenly matched. So I'm excited for that in some sense, but also I don't really think either of them is going to do too much unless the playoff meta is something drastically different that we haven't seen so far this season, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the hero pools as well, like Lucio's gonna become available, Ash, Echo. So I'm assuming we'll maybe see some more rush compositions. I mean, we'll talk about this next week, but
I mean,
Echo, like whoever is the better Echo team, stuff like that. So
I feel like giving the Fusion more time to integrate some of their other players that have just gotten there. Well, I say just gotten there. I mean, they've been there a bit, but obviously haven't been able to play with the team. Like, you have like an Ash Echo type of meta, and now you have Shockwave back in the mix. Funny Astro on Lucio. Like, they can definitely give Soul some issues, right?
Oh yeah, sure. And I think Philadelphia's improvements recently have been dramatic. Really dramatic. I thought that they'd be able to win this game and end up in Hawaii and maybe do some damage. I was actually pretty impressed with how Seoul and Philly were playing in their regular season portion of the Countdown Cup, but none of it materialized. And also, I feel like I didn't even really get my answer from this about which meta was better in the Countdown Cup, because I thought a lot of it might come down to whether ball stuff or Orisa stuff was better. And so the teams that were playing really heavy, slow Orisa kind of things like Atlanta and Seoul might end up doing extremely well if that meta was viable. But Gladiators and Chengdu still played a bunch of Orisa. They just played it at a higher tempo and won. And even when they were mirroring it against the other teams. So it was a bit of a bizarre tournament, I feel. There was a large value in terms of being a jack-of-all-trades kind of team.
What were you gonna say, Johnny?
No, I was gonna say, like, that's what was so impressive about Gladiators' win, in my mind, was that they're able to play all of these different compositions at a really high level and find compositional advantages on specific maps where, like, they favor some of these compositions. It was clear that Chengdu, they wanted to put Jinmu on Pharah a lot of the time, and that was sort of their win condition. That's why I thought they would win, because they'd be able to force it somehow, and then with their lead, play the Sombra or Tracer, it's whatever. But for the meta, it was so cool to see Gladiators being able to play Orisa compositions against the San Francisco Shock at a really high level, and Chengdu. They could swap over to like the Tracer Sombra dive if they wanted to. I don't know how much Reinhardt we saw of them.
But we saw a little bit.
They played it like once.
They played it and they boomed Atlanta on like OT in Hanamura. But
but I was gonna say Winston Honor as well. Like they could play Orisa, Winston Honor, and Wrecking Ball comps. So that was really cool how we thought like there's gonna be one dominant thing, and Gladiators just managed to play all at a really high level. So
I want to talk about Atlanta for a moment though, because we should address the copium from the Atlanta fans, the elephant in the room, etc., etc. Pelican was playing on super high ping. So for starters, they didn't even think, and most of the community, the fans didn't think he would even be
I
fielded
didn't think
at
he was
all.
going to play.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to play
Yeah, I
whatsoever. The
didn't
guy's
either.
just come out of having surgery from a collapsed lung, and he's in Atlanta. He's got 100.
Tylenol and get him out there.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got 170 ping minimum, right? That's what they said they played with him. That's what they wanted him to play on, and then he ended up being on 240 for one of the games, so he didn't get fielded. What kind of impact do you think this had? What the question here that all of the Atlanta Reign fans will want you to answer is: do you think Atlanta would have been able to win had Pelican be able to be fielded?
Oh, it was an impact. It's something that like you never could have expected or planned for, or like what do you even do, right? I mean, I think I saw that like it may have been somebody where like we had an issue, I think, like with maybe even having like them play on a different server, but like potentially like if the finals was like a Gladiators Reign, like they would have like tried to swap to like a LA server to give like Pelican like a better
Oh yeah,
kind of,
specifically around that
ping.
as well.
Yeah.
Brad posted on Reddit that uh, obviously if you have Gladiators playing against the Reign, they could have played on LA servers instead of playing on Tokyo servers. Normally they play on Tokyo so that it's in between Hawaii and Korea, right? So people are on somewhat even ping. In theory, you could have played it on the LA servers where you get similar levels of ping. But there was a report, again, Halo doing his best at semi-reporting things, reporting the juicy stuff and leaving out key details, where he was talking about the fact that they denied it due to production reasons. And then Brad posted on Reddit, the head coach of Atlanta, and he said the production reason was that they would have had to restart the entire stream in order to move the pod. And so Brad was like, well, yeah, that's a fair enough reason to not do it. And so maybe they would have been able to do it for the final had Gladiators in Atlanta played, because they would have had time to prep and they would have been. There's only one game that's happening on stream that day, so that would have been fine. But to pivot and do it during, I mean, that is the reason that you have subs, is so that you can account for emergencies like that. That's the point of having substitute players, to mitigate these kind of problems.
I mean, could they have won? Yeah. I also feel like for Atlanta, like even though they didn't win, I still feel like they kind of accomplished something that they needed to do by securing that like by not having to play in the play-ins, right? Which I think I tweeted them also, like they had like a tremendous year overall, right? They go to 3 tournaments, they skip the play-ins, they guarantee themselves in playoffs, and now they give themselves what, like 3 weeks for Pelican to like not be 2 days removed from a fucking major surgery for playoffs. Like I still feel like this team had like a fantastic year. I mean, would your opinion of them be any different going into playoffs if they won this? Like I still would feel like they would be in the same realm as they are now. We all know that they're a team capable of winning.
Yeah, I mean,
especially. Sorry, go on.
I would just say, had they won this, it would have been absurd. So like the stonks would be through the fucking roof, you know? Like people would be losing their goddamn minds if they'd won this. But I think it's quite reasonable to expect that they didn't, you know? And when I was watching them play, I think the style that they played and the variety of comps that they felt comfortable on was a bigger stumbling block than not having Pelican available, personally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. I think getting third below Chengdu and Gladiators, you still have to be very happy about that as an Atlanta player. It's like Matt said, like you came here, you did your job, you secured the playoff spot, you don't have to go through play-ins, which I think is like a major pro for these teams and something you have to be really happy about. And knowing as well that Pelican, coming off a surgery, it's tough to deal with that. And I think even though like that was a big mental block, I can imagine as well. Like I said this on broadcast, if you're an Atlanta Reign player and you know this is the case, and then you're like, oh, we got to sub out Pelican because he has 240 ping and people are like upset about it.
Sure,
and it's just one of those things that drags the team down, because you're like, what if? It's like, this sucks. Can't believe we have to deal with this. And it just sets a bad mood in the team. But getting third here. I don't think, even if Pelican played his best, I don't think maybe they could have beaten Chengdu somehow. Like, I'm not going to count it up because Chengdu, they looked a bit weak at some points. But I think Gladiators was the better NA team between the two of them. So I think you just have to be very happy with what you achieved this stage. You secured playoffs. And keep in mind, without hero pools, like Lucio's back in the pool, I think even though Masa was a great Brigitte this tournament, like, Lucio's going to be good for this team, knowing how much rush they play. You can put
They
Kai
love
back
playing
on the
rush.
Ash as well, Pelican on the Echo. Like, these are good heroes for Atlanta that now unlock going into the playoffs, and you're already playing at a really high level. So I think Atlanta is a super scary team going into playoffs now.
I mean, it's not like they fucking replaced Pelican, with Bren. I mean, Edison was
Okay.
like, I mean, Edison, last year, right when Edison came in, like he was like one of the more like highly wanted players in that offseason. Like people were so excited about him. His tracer stats were like fucking crazy last year. It's not like they just replaced him by like some dude off the fucking corner. Like, I mean, this is this is a player who's
saying in my
fucking sick.
fucking face.
Yeah. It's not like they
mean?
fucking replaced Pelican with you. Look at this.
You look
The only
fucking
time
lost.
the only time you
lost.
appear on
Did you
this
have your
show is
monitor
when you're
turned on at the
eating.
time takedown?
The only time
You're
you
fucking
appear on this
lost.
show is when
You
you're
mean
eating
placing
food.
Pelican and Bren?
What are you eating? Is that an avocado sandwich?
Yeah, it's an avocado and
bagel,
cream
though.
cheese bagel, mate.
Oh, yeah.
An everything bagel, I can tell.
Yeah, but Bren moves to Austin and becomes bougie. Otherwise,
Yeah,
Bougie
very
bagel.
true.
he gets
Cream
he gets
cheese
he gets
bagel.
he gets out of when people like leave where they came from and change, right? Bren leaving Glockster really changed him.
Glockster. Jesus Christ.
I mean, how many maps did Atlanta Reign win at the tournament? Was
3?
it 1? No, wait, sorry. Yeah, of course it was 3 because they beat Seoul. And then after that, what did they have afterwards? No, these are our pick'ems.
Well, these
but
is
they
what
got,
Oh, there's the
they got
scores,
3-0.
right? Sorry, I was looking at the ones that we'd filled in. Right. So, but then they got 3-0, 3-0 to get knocked out, right, by Chengdu and Gladiators. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I hear where you guys are coming from with Atlanta being a scary team in the postseason, and I think they are, and they've earned their spot, and they've done incredibly well. I don't see them as a team that can win the entire championship. I don't know whether that's unfair to them after such an excellent season that they've had, but I struggle to think of a meta where they're better than Dallas and better than other people at the same time, and like Shanghai and everything in between. They have some stuff that they're really excellent at. Their Orisa comps where they play the slow pace stuff, they're really good once you put the slow the game down a bit, put the emphasis in Kai and Edison or Pelican's hands. And they seem to be pretty damn good at rush comps as well. But there's a lot of Western teams that are very good at rush comps. And Orisa's slow pace stuff it's never been the dominant meta this year, and I don't really see why it would be in the postseason. So to me, they're not really one of the teams that I'm looking at to like explode. I feel like the ceiling for Atlanta, there are certain comps that they just don't seem comfortable with, and that seems to limit their potential when I think about them going to actually win a championship at the end of the year. I reckon they could make it super deep, but I feel like there's still something missing there that I'm not sure they can get in time. Is that me being unfair, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think most people would agree that Atlanta, we don't view them as like a potential league winner, but I recognize them as like a top team. If they're like top 6 in the world, maybe like top 5, top 4 with Shanghai Dragons, Dallas Fuel, LA Gladiators now, Chengdu,
yeah.
and I mean,
and then Atlanta, yeah, absolutely.
But I'm kind of like, I'm just leaving the door open. I'm not saying that they're going to win. I'm just leaving the door open. Maybe there's a small balance patch as we've seen earlier past years, going into playoffs. Just a small shift could be a big difference maker for a team like this as well. They're in a pretty good form right now. I think some of their players are playing their best Overwatch of the season. They've shown some versatility in this meta compared to early on when I think they were very one-dimensional to start the season.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm just like leaving the door open. They don't have to play Overwatch League for a month now. So like they can ride this high momentum, go back to practice, iron out the details, check like LA Gladiators votes, like, hey, how does LA Gladiators and Shock play or reach the compositions differently from us? What are some small things we can implement in our game? Individual players can improve. I just think that they're like one of the teams who are there. Like I'm not going to dismiss them. I think they're a great team, and I think they could improve even more.
I don't think the issue is their Orisa or their Rhine comps. It's the ability to play stuff like the ball and play like Winston-based compositions that I feel like it doesn't hold them back at times, but it makes them a little bit easier of a read. Like where I think Atlanta, like they hit their highs on some of the comps. Like it's almost like where I think the Gladiators, like I don't think the Gladiators are the best at any comp, but they're very good at all of the different things. They can play everything at a pretty high level. Where Atlanta plays those select few comps so good that if it veers out of that, maybe it's a little bit scary for them. But if the meta kind of like still goes around like maybe like a Rush or Risa based compositions, right? Pelican sick on the Echo, and what they need a good bracket and a balance patch, and they're a team that could definitely make like a final, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you say that as well, I suppose with Sigma being added back into the hero pool and people already playing a bunch of Orisa, there is a potential for some double shield stuff to come back and Atlanta to look really scary. So I think, that could be a path in, actually, that I hadn't quite considered.
And I even though like we've hit a lot so far this podcast about like versatility and how great it is to be able to flex to all these different comps, I think it's such an obvious like advantage to be able to flex onto these different compositions and always like counter comp your opponent. But for some of these teams, like Chengdu with the Wrecking Ball comp, or Atlanta playing like Double Shield, or even like Orisa Diva with Kai playing Hit Scan, their peak level on those compositions is so good that it's very hard to counter someone who are so good at their game.
Sure,
So
yeah.
like you can't practice really. Like you can practice against other Orisa teams, you can practice against other ball teams, but Chengdu and Atlanta specifically, they're so good at what they do that it's very hard to come prepared for those matches. And I really believe that Atlanta Reign could be one of those teams that specialize in what they do best, and they're so hard to prepare for. And you get into that live match, and you're just like, how do we get to Kai? Like we can't get to Kai.
No, I really thought that would be a major defining factor at the Countdown Cup. And I was so impressed with the Gladiators, actually, that they managed to be able to beat Atlanta and Chengdu running their really strong stuff. Because you've got to expect coming into the tournament, Chengdu were the best ball team. And you've got to expect, honestly, I think that Atlanta were the best Orisa-based team. The Orisa Diva comps, no one else had been performing them at the same level, I thought, as Atlanta Reign. Gladiators matched them multiple times in that match that they had, and they beat them handedly. Like, they were matching them on Orisa Diva comps, and they were crushing Atlanta, just playing with so much extra pace and explosiveness, and having some really nice balance.
Very cool.
Zen Bap was...
Yeah, absolutely. And just the understanding of when they could run the Zen backline, and when, like, we saw Kevster playing a ton of Tracer, and that really stops your opponents running Zenbap as well. You're almost, if you run Zenbap, I feel like you're asking the question of the other team, what can you do to threaten us? You know, if you don't have anything, we're just going to sit here and be super safe and output huge amounts of value from the backline. And so you're kind of asking your opponents the question, like, do you have a Tracer player that can contest us? Do you have some, like, weird Genji pick? Are you going to try and dive us? Like, bring it the fuck on. And a lot of the time, Gladiators were not punished enough for trying to run that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even Chengdu struggled against that, right? Like, they pulled out the Jinmu Genji.
Yeah, they ran Tracer Genji Ball to try and deal with it.
Yeah, which I think was a kind of cool pick, especially given the hero bans, like there's no Echo in the pool. So I thought that was quite inventive. I am worried, though, now when we just had this Atlanta Reign conversation. Sorry, we'll talk about Chengdu and Gladiators too. But just like how Atlanta are going to move on from that, because they essentially got counter-comped in their own Orisa comps. And now they're like, well, we can't match Sen BAP with Masa paying flex like Gladiators can. So one thing for them to figure out.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, the Gladiators were so impressive all tournament. I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah, no,
Help.
the Zen BAP stuff was a real difference maker, and something I kind of talked about when we were casting is like there's not many teams who can run that. What the Shock can, right? With Twilight and Violet.
Yeah.
Obviously the Gladiators can. Like, how many other teams have the flex supports capable of being able to do that?
I mean, in theory,
I mean,
Dallas could, except I don't know that they'd want to run like
I don't think they could
Repel
run
and Fielder
Fix It.
at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah,
Right, yeah.
You know, they don't want to. I wouldn't imagine they want to run double flex support, but in theory, they do have that on the.
While we're on the topic, I don't know if you guys saw this, but we were having fun on broadcast on the show, and I put Costa on the spot because I'm just trying to be cheeky, and I was like, "Yo, those Gladiators have the second best support lineup
I saw
in the league
that
now."
actually. I saw that. God, he shit
And
himself having to answer. He was like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's too hot.
Yeah, yeah. But he had a good answer. He was like, "Well, you can't underrate Philly, with Funny Astro and Alarm," which
yeah.
no, I can agree with. But you can't underrate the flexibility that Shu and Skewed has, and Skewed being such a fantastic brig as well to go with that. Obviously, I don't know if they could play Skewed on the Lucio like Moth, even the Mercy, but
He played the
it's a
Mercy.
very sick backline. They did, yeah, but I mean,
He
it's
does play some Mercy.
But also, I mean, if we want to talk about crazy backlines, Philly is the preeminent one that could immediately just play BAP Zen and start dominating. Because Astro's perfectly happy picking that up.
Yeah.
To me, the Gladiators Chengdu game was so interesting, though. Like the first one that they had, that 3-2 win that went the way of Gladiators, because you start out with Chengdu being able to win on control. And to me, when I was watching that game, I've been trying to fix my sleep schedule so that I wake up at 9 a.m. every day. So normally I wake up at like fucking midday or something, and I just wasted half of the day. And so I've been trying to fix my sleep schedule, but I tried to adjust it at the exact wrong time because it's as we started shifting our work schedule to Hawaii time. And so I woke up at 9 a.m., was watching these games, Matt and Mitch casting these games, and I fell asleep halfway through. I zonked out halfway through the games. Not because it was a bad game, it was a fun game. I just had to catch up on the VOD the next day because I'd fucked myself up. So I was like watching the VOD, scrolling back through, and I felt like Leave had an insane performance in those first two maps, arguably first three maps, and then and almost no one else on Chengdu were doing anything for those first two maps. And then they started to get back into it, and then Leave started to not have as much of a carry performance like the later you got into this series.
Fucking shots he was hitting on Hanzo on the first map. Just so stupid.
They're
Like the
"Come on,
reaction when
Birdring."
he hit Birdring with when he was Sombra, and
Yeah.
he just like turns and just dings him in the head.
Yeah,
I think
that was barbaric.
The second half of the series really felt like it was dominated by Kevster. And Leave wasn't really getting a lot of value out of the Sombra, which he can play Sombra. Statistically, Jinmu is the better one, but clearly they feel like having Jinmu on the Pharah is like the big kind of damage source. I would have loved to see them put Leave more on the Tracer to try and combat Kevster a little bit.
Yeah, they barely played any in this series. That was a big adjustment they made for the finals, but in this series, Leave played a very tiny amounts of Tracer.
When he was playing the Tracer against Kevster, he was doing very well. Like even in the finals, I remember a few times where he would just like one clip him, just chase him down, hunt him down, being able to take him out, which helps their backline a little bit. But
I think one of the reasons why they might not want to do that particularly as well is when you're running Pharah, you don't have the Harmony Orb, you don't have armor packs to be able to help Leave. So I could imagine from his point of view, when he's dueling Kevster, it feels like a huge uphill battle for him, trying to fight against a guy who either has permanent Harmony on him, or he's getting like flung armor packs from or Skewed constantly. I can imagine why Leave might not want to try and take that head-to-head matchup, but it looked good when he tried it. Also, what a fucking play from Space here. What an absolute legend.
Oh yeah, I
keeping
mean this
news
was
alive.
that was elite.
Space is so good. Space is so fun to watch this year as well because he's playing so aggressively and still getting huge value.
These teams are so fun to watch play. Just because like they play so many different things. Like you would see the counters and everything kind of play out like live, and just the level of play between them was just Pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, I talked about this in one of the game breaks too, but it was the finals matchup. But you could see it even in this first one, just like how dominant they were showcasing their styles on different maps that obviously favored different teams depending on the map. But for example, on Control, like Chengdu would just come out and just who won the Gladiators. Assault was Gladiators' better game mode. That's where they were able to play the Winston Ana composition. Shu had some insane sleep dars that just like won them Temple of Anubis twice over almost.
Yeah, he did. Those were crazy.
Yeah.
Then we had King's Row, which is Chengdu's best hybrid map, I'd like to believe. But after this matchup, Gladiators were like, well, our King's Row is actually better. Like, we can play the Orisa composition with our Bapsen, and that's a strength of ours. Then we went to Route 66 initially. That's when they full held, right? And so you could see them going back and forth with like different styles and different compositions and figuring themselves out. And it was so sick because those adjustments carried into the finals matchup as well. That's like why we didn't see King's Row being picked by the Chengdu in the finals. We saw Numbani instead. And I can't wait to talk about the finals too. But I agree with Matt. Like, it was such a fun match because both teams obviously had different strategies planned for different maps, and they like figured out which one was better and their strengths like throughout the matchup. It really felt like
well, before we go on,
Overwatch is the meme, but
yeah. And it's so fun watching high tempo teams play as well. I just feel like it's very fun to see. You've got more potential for mistakes if you play fast, but if they minimize mistakes and it's all good shit, it just feels gorgeous to watch. Before we talk about the final, though, I do want to talk for a moment just about that final map of the first game that they played, the one on Oasis. Where Leave was playing Sombra. He'd played Sombra on Route 66, and I felt like watching him play Sombra on Route. He had that one bad EMP that was really bad, but then he had another good EMP, and his neutral game was pretty good, and it's like, all right, maybe that's just a one-off. And at this point, remember, I'm watching a VOD, so I've seen my Twitter feed blow up about Leave Sombra being dog shit, and like, I'm watching Route 66, and I'm like, this isn't too bad. People are overblowing it. It was only one whiffed EMP. Like, yeah, and then it comes into this one, and I'm like, holy fuck, they weren't exaggerating. This was off the fucking rails. So,
but you tweeted out, right? You liked this neutral game?
The neutral game was pretty good, yeah, but you can't really play this comp if you're whiffing every EMP. And it was literally every EMP was whiffed. That's crazy. And it was only one map in the series, but it was the final map. Chengdu are normally better at control anyway. So coming into this map, I was anticipating, Chengdu are going to win this. Like, Chengdu should win this. And
they should have won this.
I felt like it wasn't just Leave, but the whole team looked like they were crumbling. This looked like a bit of a choke from the Hunters.
Yeah, a little maybe too much pressure here, I think, for the Hunters. Really kind of like their first opportunity at something like this. I mean, same for the Gladiators, but at least some of the players on the team have that high level experience. But yeah, when we were casting this, I actually, going into the map, like with how good Chengdu played on Route, I was like, man, this is like good kind of vintage Gladiators, right? Where they're so close and they're gonna beef it. And the only thing that just it's so brutal. Like, I mean, there's so many EMPs that just go for nothing. And I guess like the brutal part for me is like knowing how good Leave is on some of the other heroes that he possibly could have played here.
Sure, it's like, why aren't you playing the Tracer, right? Like,
right, if he's playing the Tracer with the ball, right, and putting pressure. I mean, imagine the
I mean, it's hard against this comp, right? You're playing against McCree, Tracer, and Big.
But absolutely.
I mean, but when you're not getting anything with your EMPs, I mean, you may as well just have something else out there.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's not like the EMP is some random ult in the middle of this team comp. It's actually crazy important for being able to. But even here, man, they're in a 6v4 scenario, right? And they're already 50% ahead.
Yeah, Skewed clutches it up with his fight, I think.
Yeah, Kevster was
kills like 3.
Kevster was just nasty good. I felt like Gaga was getting punished a huge amount, not just in this game, but in the tournament overall, actually, too.
Yeah, Costa covered it. Apparently, Gaga's a feeder now. He has like 6.5 deaths per 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, he really has been.
Twice of mag.
Yeah, he really has been getting twice of mag.
Jesus.
No, but I'll actually, if they hadn't whiffed the EMPs here, I do think this map was Chengdu's for the taking, and Gladiators like full credit for winning this map. But if Leave hits a couple of EMPs on this round, I do think that they probably win it. They win this round, and then University. I mean, Gladiators they're like 100-0, but again, you whiff the EMPs. I don't think they win that. But if you go against Gladiators with this comp on City Center, I'd predict Chengdu winning City Center. It's City Center, right?
Yeah,
which one?
Yeah, it's City Center. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, they got 100-0 on away on University.
Kevster was so fucking good the whole.
He was,
game.
He was.
Like
insane.
I mean, like people were just like I feel like it was everyone was just waiting like for Kevster to kind of like show like why all this hype and everything. And I mean, he's been fantastic, but like this weekend though, like he was dominant.
Dude, my brain melted watching Kevster, so I thought he was a rookie. I tweeted out and I was like, dude, how have I never thought about Kevster being rookie of the year this year? And then
fucking second year.
I just was immediately, people were like, bro, he's not a rookie. And I'm like, oh fuck.
He never made it to NA last year.
And that's what confused me, is that he only turned up to LA this year and he got signed like halfway through the 2020 season or something, right? He wasn't there at the beginning when they were doing homestands and stuff. So I got my wires crossed and I was like, dude, this guy's been fucking dominating ever since he turned up.
Could you imagine if he was playing this good and he wasn't up for Rookie of the Year? They would just have to get rid of whoever the fuck is in charge of the nominations. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
would you say that Kevster was the tournament MVP then? Because I tweeted that out and people are like, well, Shu, like he made that play against the Shock and Shu.
I mean, it wasn't just that play though, right? It was also the crazy sleep darts that he had to be able to win Anubis from Chengdu and like, and just this incredible consistency from the back line. I'm torn between the two of them, honestly. I think it's not as obviously Shu as some people will point out on the basis of that clutch, but I think it's very tough to call between the two of them because they both had an amazing tournament for Glads.
Yeah, I mean, they were just both. Shu definitely showed why he's in the MVP conversation, right? With how good he was. Yeah. And then I think Kevster just being able to play the Tracer, it's such like a high level, just a dominant level. Really kind of showed like his worth is as a player. I also think seeing players like Kevster, I saw who it was on Twitter, and I completely forgot who it was, but they're just like, can we stop using like flex and hit scan DPS as like a thing?
Funny Astro.
It was Funny Astro, yeah, where like you look at a player like Kevster and you totally get that. Like the game has moved so far past being able to just play one thing. Like look at players like Kevster, Shockwave, even like Prophet, right? Like these. Yeah. I mean, Kevster fucking like one. Yeah, Leave. I mean, Kevster in one round goes like he could play fucking Widowmaker, Pharah, Genji, then play like the best Tracer in the lobby. Like it's absolutely like absurd.
These are also the best players in the world. Keep in mind, okay, not everyone can be the best players in the world, but yes.
That's where I think that's where it's going though. I feel
a lot of our terminology in Overwatch does suck though as well. Like flex support does not flex any more than a main support. I mean, they're just archaic terms. Kurt, I have a request though. Please, could you scroll back to the beginning of that map that you just showcased on Anubis? Because when I was casting the finals, right, and I'd been looking at the VOD of Chengdu playing against Gladiators before, I was like, okay, on Anubis, what I identified as a big issue for the Chengdu Hunters was that they were playing an Orisa-based defense on checkpoint B on Anubis before, and they got rolled over because you can't play aggressively with Gaga playing Orisa. It just doesn't work. And so when I watched Chengdu play against Seoul, for example, they ran super aggressive defenses. They looked really good doing it. Gaga's on Winston. They have all of this space, and they're getting Leave and Jinmu really deep in there. Looked awesome. So I thought, okay, Chengdu have learned from their prior game. They're coming out. They're playing Winston, Ana. We're going to see both teams really going head-to-head, and we're going to see how Gaga combos with Leave. They take a look at it, and they go ball comps. Balls end to attack on Anubis. I was losing my fucking mind. Jonathan, what did you and Custer think when you were watching this game as well? Did you also think this was a throw pick, or is there some deeper level that I just didn't get as to why they tried this?
I think if you're trying to play that stuff, you're worried about being outpaced by the Tracer and the Sombra, because those characters are so mobile that Genji's just going to have a hard fucking time. That being said, I mean, it's so much about ultimate rotations on Anubis, and that's why we saw Gladiators be so successful at it, playing offense, because they would snowball with that Nano Blade
Yeah.
and the EMP, right? And that really works for Anubis. I think Chengdu Hunters, I just think Assault is not their strongest map type. And I think they got carried away here, like trying to counter comp in a finals matchup. And just saying like, hey, we're gonna win on individual skill and just take the head-to-head. When I think that I don't think Assault is the map type to really do that on. Like, it works with like Echo and stuff, right? Because Echo is so mobile that like you can dive, you can burn up tanks, you can go for the backline, but it's so hard for Gaga to really get space here.
Yeah, I mean, he's going in, he's trying to slam as Gladiators do these soft dives. Muse went weak, but just got saved by Shu with a nano boost because you get nano so quickly in that comp. And now, and then Chengdu had like one good fight where they have double support ultimate and EMP, but that's their only chance of being able to win.
Yeah.
And it just feels like this. I feel like there's a really big reason why people don't run this comp. It's so fragile against a Winston Ana when your backline's trying to get into position. And I mean, how do you... Like, Jinmu pops his EMP here after Monk has already died, and that's it. That's done. You just wasted EMP rally. Zen was already dead, and you've lost the entire map.
The win condition here for the Winston, right? It's just like, because you're playing a Winston, so you're pretty limited in your movement. Like, you can only leap once, right? And you gotta decide, am I leaping in or am I leaping out? But on Temple of Anubis, like, the spacing is so good for a Winston here. Like, it's a fantastic Winston map.
It is, yeah.
So they're always going to be in a position where they can pull off a favorable dive. This retake was sick, by the way.
It was, yeah.
Gladiators.
Shoot with another
I think
nano.
Monk is in a really bad position here with his trans, and he gets jumped on, I think. He does get the trans out, does he? Yeah. But like, you force that trans early, you stall out this point, and suddenly, like, you've regained all your positioning here, and you're playing a neutral fight because of Chengdu's comp. Like, what are Chengdu gonna do? They don't have an EMP, they're just playing the neutral fight.
Yeah.
And Gladiators have a Winston comp. Like,
it's just done.
There's no ultimates. There's snowball or invest here.
No, it's. When I watched the finals, Gladiators were obviously a fantastic team, but part of me thinks that Chengdu tossed this game away. Like, I feel like Chengdu had... They don't have opportunities to... They're not... Let's put it this way. They're not favored to win on Anubis, even if they play meta comps. But they're more favored than getting fucking locked out, right? So they have some level of play that they could have brought here. And then also, I can understand why you would want to reinvent the wheel when it goes to Route 66, because you think that Gladiators have got a decent read on how you like to play the map, so you sub in Eamon, Farway, that kind of thing. And that map was close as well. But I can't get the, like, what if out of my head of you won on it previously, you're clearly the better team on that map. If you play the same stuff, you're still going to be favored. It might be closer, but you're still going to be favored. Whereas they threw in Farway and Eamon and kind of messed with the pot. And the game still ended up so close when Chengdu just hard tossed Anubis and made these other, like the Numbani pick, and then this, like... when I was casting the game, it felt like they sunk themselves into a 1-3 hole of their own making.
I thought you guys were fucking memeing. I was listening on my phone, walking down the street, going to get empanadas. I heard Josh start talking about fucking Eamon and Farway, and I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And pulled it up on YouTube. I started seeing all these subs. I was like so confused. I was like, wait, didn't they win this map the other day? I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I feel like you make changes like that on a map that didn't
they
for
do
you.
this in a previous tournament? We saw this from Chengdu where they made these...
They did it in the regular season, but I don't think I've seen them do it in a knockout.
Why do I feel like we saw them play in one of these, like, stages, and they did the same type of thing where they, like, lost, like, a game or two, and they subbed in Eamon?
It might have happened. It might have happened for the May Melee. I don't think it happened for the Summer Showdown, but I could be wrong with that. It was statistically successful in the regular season. Farway has been subbed in for like 9 maps maybe, something like that.
How many of those were against the Valiant?
I don't know, but he has
sub in Eamon against Shanghai on Nepal.
He definitely did play on Nepal. I can't remember whether it was against Shanghai, right?
No, it was in the last finals.
But Eamon has a slightly higher win percentage than Gaga. Farway has like a significantly higher win percentage, but he comes in less often. So they have been successful, relatively so, when they've done this in the past. It feels like a large risk to take, especially when you're 1-2 down in the series. Like, you're putting so much pressure on these players to get you even. Yeah, I wondered what you guys thought of this subbing strategy for Root.
I mean, they were so good on Route 66 when they full held them, right? In the like winter final. I don't really see the point in it, especially like Farway playing the Ana here. Like, you're still playing the ball, right? Like how you guys were talking about, like playing the Ana with a Winston. Like,
they went off the charts in terms of the comps they were running. Like,
oh, this is the one where they were on the goo, right? They were
What?
doing some weird shit towards the end.
Wasn't Monk supposed to be the superior Ana player?
Yeah, I believe
and Faraway
so. Yeah.
was known for his Zenyatta.
Yeah, I think they were
I
planning
did that
on
research
playing...
going into the season, but I can't remember now.
I'm pretty sure they were planning on doing Zen here.
They were playing some straight up vintage Chengdu shit at the end.
Yeah, I believe so. But I was really impressed at how Muse managed to get away with playing Winston here. I think this is like a ball map through and through in the current meta, and it feels like you should get hard punished for playing Winston. Just a Discord orb on you, and if the other team is playing Tracer Sombra and they have enough coordination to pressure you, I feel like you should get melted. I think Muse played well, but he also kind of gets away with the fact that they're playing Sombra Barrier.
Yeah, I didn't get these substitutions, man. Like we didn't know, by the way, when we did that crosstalk with you guys, and you were like, "Hey, they're making subs. They're changing up the entire roster." And me and Custa, we were like, "What?" It's like, what is happening? Iveltal is understandable, you know. You get Iveltal back in the lineup.
Jimmy is coming in,
but Faraway and Amon coming into the lineup, like I was so confused because I had talked up Route 66 as well. I was like, yeah, they're down 2-1. They're not out of the series yet, though. We're going guaranteed to Route 66. It's going to be a great map for Chengdu. And then they were like, yeah, they're subbing out their main tank and their flex support. And I was like, what? So I think this map is going to be the map that Chengdu Hunters are really going to be kicking themselves with.
Yeah.
And I do believe they should have, especially playing this comp as well. Like, as you said, you should be able to punish Muse. Even if you get the car to here, like the Winston pick is kind of good here because you have so much control being able to jump to the cave entrance and then get back around the corner. So it's too late to try to counter the Winston here. You want to do that on point A or early point B, but now it's like Gladiators got momentum. This stall though was pretty sick. I remember
it was good,
right?
Yeah, this was good.
Or was it the other way around? Was it Gladiator stall on their defense?
No, I think Chengdu held here
like
for a while. Chengdu eventually managed to clean this up, and it looked like it was going the way of Glads. And but this was where Chengdu changed their comp as well. They're running Tracer Sombra, they're running the Zen and the Brig. They're running like what you would have expected them to run at the beginning of this map, and they weren't. That's what confused me as well. Is it's not just the picks; it's also the strategy that they had leaning into it was so drastically different from what they'd won with that it confused the crap out of me. And again, made me think like Chengdu went down 1-3, and at that point I was like, Chengdu's coaches are throwing this game right now. That's the impression I got. But they clawed it back and they played some great Overwatch towards the end and much more standard stuff too. So I don't think you can be mad overall as a Chengdu fan, but there were some questionable decisions early in the series.
I mean, they won so convincingly on this map too, the first series. Like, why even feel the need to change anything? Like, clearly, like, they were not.
That's a lot of respect to give to Gladiators, isn't it? That you know, you're anticipating that they've already come up with a solution and you're preemptively changing stuff. That's like crazy respect to give to the Gladiators coaches.
Yeah, even so, like I think if you're Chengdu, you're just like, okay. Yeah, it's crazy respect to give, and especially with like 2 days preparation or whatever. Yeah, Gladiators could have improved. They could have done things differently. They could have scouted out what Chengdu did already. But if I'm Chengdu, I'm like confident in what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, like they're probably gonna be able to cap point A this time around. But like we're great on this map, and instead,
we'll give them A this time, but we'll still hold them a B.
At least go into the game and see if they can actually have changed anything up and improved, and then come up with have some strategies that you want to fall back on after that. Like
But like I said, like I'd love to know why they made the substitutions. If they did it because of like far away or Among, they have different play styles, then so be it. They had tried to have a read on how Gladiators are playing from watching them and playing them themselves. Like, okay, fair enough. I think it was the wrong call, but I can't go out here and say that like it was definitively the wrong call. Like the coaching was wrong. I can't say that they are wrong in making this player change, because if they did it because of a good reason, then
yeah, and they have said in the past that they like to sub in Eamon and Farway when they're going for a much more aggressive approach, because Eamon likes to get stuck in with everything and like try and finish off kills, etc., etc. But this was a crazy series because I was planning to go out after this game. It's the final day of the regular season. It's the end of the Countdown Cup. It's a Saturday as well. I'm like, I'm going to hit the fucking town after this. And so I'm already, this gets to 3-1. I'm already texting people like, bro, I'm going to be wrapped in like 20 minutes. This game's over. And then it absolutely was not over. Chengdu came back and played some fantastic Overwatch and pushed us all the way to a Game 7.
Oh no, it was the Havana where they started to play some Chengdu shit at the end.
Oh, they were playing Winston. They were playing fucking Widow Genji.
With a Rissa ball. They had a Rissa ball, I think, at one point.
Yeah, they did. It was wild. I mean, that was the final map. That was final map jitters, I think. Just them. They looked very, very scatterbrained when it came to that final map. But what were the other two? I've forgotten. It was...
There were two maps.
King's Row, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chengdu managed to bring it back again, like flipping the pick there of King's Row.
Yeah. King's Row, I think, was my favorite map between these two teams. The first time around, it was like a really close King's Row. And then in the finals, I was like telling Costa, I was like, please let them pick King's Row. I want to see it again. I think Chengdu made some mild adaptations. I think Monk played Ana instead of BAP. I think Monk played BAP on King's Row in the first round.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Leaf was playing Sombra as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. But what happened here? Didn't Leaf pop off on like Hans or something on attack? Like,
honestly, I can't remember.
Together, so
it's a fever dream.
It's a
fever dream. I can't remember what occurred in this map actually. My brain
Leaf's pulse bomb stick onto Skewed. It was like the winning thing to close out this map as well. Because Gladiators were trying to cap out point C. And the last fight, Lee comes in with like a huge pulse bomb right when Skewed pops the rally and secures this map. But yeah, these King's Row maps were so much fun to watch, really.
Yeah, they were very even here, which is why, even though I feel like...
Oh, this is so funny, by the way. When Muse hunts down Leave here, this is Bans. I'm in an alley. It's Bans. Also, good map for Winston again, right?
Yeah.
So
Muse played a ton of Winston. He really did get massive value out of playing the Winston, which is a return back to early on in the season. So far, we've been seeing Fate with his more defensive style of Winston compared to Gaga and compared to Eamon be able to shut down Winston players really heavily. Where he's trying to counter the Winston players and ends up making their lives hell. But in this tournament, it felt like the Winston was getting more value for sure.
Bro, this has nothing to do with either of these teams really, but like before the season, we were talking about how competitive the league was going to be this year, and like sometimes you may get let down. Like I feel like when you hear stuff like that, but like I mean. Outside the teams that were just fucking dog, right? I mean, the games are fucking sick this year. I mean, we've had some sick fucking games. I mean, yeah, just delete some of the dog game, the bad games from your memory, right? But like, we've had some fucking sick battles this year.
I mean, we'll probably talk about it later, right? But I think it's overall been a pretty entertaining regular season. It was all online, which is unfortunate. It would have been sick to have more in-person events. But like, I thought it was storyline-wise a pretty interesting season. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the addition of having Hawaii made all the difference. After Gladiators won this game, right, they wrap it up in that map 7 of Havana. Chengdu are playing the Chengdu comps. It's all crazy. Gladiators managed to get it to the end. Huge win for them. Looking towards the postseason for Gladiators, have they proven something to you guys? Have they now showcased a peak that you think, okay, maybe this team can win a championship? We were talking about it earlier with Atlanta. What's the thoughts when it comes to Gladiators?
For me, they have. And John, I can already see Johnny's face where he's not sure, but like I think they, for me, I just needed to see them not like crumble in a moment like this, and they almost did, to be fair. Chengdu starts coming out playing Chengdu at the end. But I think a win like this gives this team a lot of confidence, which I feel like that's the one thing that they were lacking. Like they're a very good, well-rounded team. They have, championship experience, right, with Moth, even though he hasn't really played because the Lucio hasn't been played at all during this tournament. I feel like for them, getting this win under their belt is going to give them a ton of confidence going into the playoffs, where I definitely think they can be a team that, I mean, are they the championship favorites? I don't think so. But can they be a team in the conversation for the top 3? I absolutely think so, with an outside chance of winning it all.
So I agree to an extent. I think they definitely proved something here, and I think this is an experience they can definitely build on. Like now you got past that, struggle to be able to win some of these elimination matches. You won a knockout game. You clutched up against the San Francisco Shock. Shu is an amazing clutch player. I think we can say that now, where he's clutched up twice when he's really needed to. Plays really well. I am worried about, even though we talked about their versatility, how great it is that they play many different compositions, I think it was good for them that it was kind of streamlined with the backline. They're like, hey, we're going to play Skewed and Shu all the time. And yes, sometimes Skewed will flex over to Zenyatta, but he's a flex support player, originally. So I don't think that's too much of a big deal for Skewed. But overall, the backline is very consistent with Shu and Skewed. I'm worried, like bringing back Lucio to the mix. Birdring might play some Ash. Echo, some of these heroes. I'm worried that it becomes too many variables for the Gladiators when they start thinking like, hey, we need to learn how to play Lucio Rush. When are we going to sub in Moth back into the mix?
Right.
Now we're going to play Muse on the Wrecking Ball, the Orisa comps. You guys have faith with the Gladiators? I feel like the hero pool this time around, it kind of streamlined the Gladiators, what they had to be good at. The meta was in their favor. Like
they
this
did
is
still
what they
play a
were
large
at, so.
range of things. They still went to they dominated when it came to Orisa comps. They were clearly the best Winston team that we had there as well, and they were able to flex to bulk picks occasionally too. This was a relatively diverse meta for them. They didn't have to sub in a different flex support, which is going to make a big difference. But the rest of the normal comms, I guess. Rush.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying they can't play Rush with Lucio. So I want to turn this segment into Josh and Matt. Please tell me how my irrational fear that they can't flex is wrong, and like set my head straight.
They can't flex. I mean, I thought they were the one team that we saw this weekend that was able to flex to just about everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so why am I worried about the Gladiators in the playoffs?
Here's why I'm worried. Here's why I'm worried, and maybe it's similar, is that Gladiators have clearly shown a peak that's crazy. The actual peak performance of Gladiators is nuts. Like, it is championship caliber. They could, in theory, win. But over the course of the season, they haven't shown the same level of consistency across different metas that a team like a Dallas or an Atlanta have within their own region, never mind a Shanghai or something like that. So, to me, the question of what they'll do when it comes to the playoffs is, do you want to rely on what they've showcased recently or what they've done all year? Because what they've done all year hasn't been good enough. There have been small glimpses of it.
They haven't been bad, though.
No, but it hasn't been good enough to win a championship, Matt.
No, it's not.
But what they're doing right now is. So to me, it's a question of, is this just a hot streak? Is this just their current form? Or are they going to be able to replicate this over the course of any meta that the playoffs throws towards them? A team like Atlanta, if we want to make the direct comparison, I'm really confident that Atlanta can take a bunch of stuff in the postseason and find something that will get them deep. Like, minimum placement is going to be really deep for Atlanta. Gladiators, I think they could finish with a bit of a disappointment, or they could go literally all the way. I think there's a small chance that they could win the tournament, win the entire year. But I think the variation is much larger for them compared to Atlanta, because I've seen it happen with Atlanta. They are always able to make deep placements. They just can't Their peak doesn't look as crazy as Gladiators does. That to me is the difference between those two teams and why you might favor Gladiators more for a championship, but you might actually place them at a lower average placing as well. If you had to bet where they would finish, you might say, oh well, it's more likely to be like fifth on the balance of between first and 10th.
Yeah, I'm trying to think over some of their compositions as well.
I don't know. I feel like they're peaking at the right time, and
they are they are. They're definitely playing some great Overwatch. Yeah, I need to get past this mental barrier. Maybe it's because like they made like a lot of changes, but they're not massive changes like this meta. Never mind.
So
I need to figure this out, gentlemen. I need to stop
Yeah,
disrespecting the LA Gladiators after winning a stage.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's fair, right? They haven't been. So let's see.
There was not a lot of variation, I feel like, with their swaps. Even though they played a lot of different stuff, like they didn't make broad sweeping changes. Did they not? Am I wrong in assuming that?
So what do you mean by a broad sweeping change? What do you mean by that? Because they did play everything from BAP Zen comps to like Mercy Anna comps in terms of their backline. They've played Orisa. They've played the
but like
the Winston around that. Space has always been on Diva, and so that's
they played a ton of Tracer Sombra pretty much all the time. I guess they can't. Yeah, they show the Pharah compositions when
they played some Pharah Hanzo at different times as well.
Pharah,
Kevster was pretty capable going over to that. They played. I mean, Birdring's played all long range hit scan, the Hanzo, the Sombra.
The Gladiators are flexible, and they will be great come playoffs. I'm really glad we had this conversation, gentlemen. I can now see it.
Obviously, they qualify for this tournament and they make it all the way, but they were super close the two prior. I know they lose a close series to Dallas 3-1, which Dallas goes on to the finals. And then in the summer showdown, they lose to Atlanta in a game 5 to qualify.
Oh yeah, no, they have not been a bad team ever since they went like 2-2 in the May Melee. They've been great since then. They've been great, but great in this year is not good enough to be able to get you to stage finals, to win you stage finals, to win a championship. Like they could very reasonably go into the playoffs and lose a close map 5 to a Dallas or an Atlanta or any Chengdu, Shanghai, something like that, and it would look a bit disappointing if they end up in like a 8th position. Like they could literally run into another team that's that good. No, they couldn't end 8th, right? Because they're guaranteed to playoffs or something. But you know what I mean? They could get knocked out in an early round in a close match, and it could still be a pretty decent performance. This year is hyper competitive. They have to bring their fucking A game if they want to get it deep.
I think they could end up finishing with the best placement of the NA teams in the overall playoffs. Like I think
I could see that
highly of them. Like where I think Atlanta could run into. Atlanta's been pretty consistent throughout all the comps. I think Dallas is really the wild card, right? Of like what happens. Dallas doesn't really want to play the Orisa comps.
Do you think Dallas are more volatile than the Gladiators? Because I don't agree with that. I think Gladiators are more likely to have a great or a mediocre. I think Dallas are either going to be great or they're either going to be...
I could see Dallas flopping. Is that a hot take?
I could see Dallas having a worse time than the Glads.
I mean, I could.
I think a lot of these NA teams are coming off like a good streak.
I don't see Dallas flopping. Dallas haven't flopped all year long. They literally haven't. They've been, at the worst, they've been the 3rd place team up until recently when they stopped scrimming. I mean, or not stopped scrimming, but reduced scrim time heavily. I think it's pretty recency biased. I think Dallas are not going to make a very deep run. No? I mean, unless we literally see Orisa is the main meta, I'm not counting out Dallas.
Well, we talked about how Sigma's coming back in, right? Like double shield, like what would they do in that type of...
Yeah, that would be worrying. But we don't know that that's going to be the meta. There's no way of telling at this point. It doesn't... Like, we haven't had that as being the meta at any point during this year. So I don't see why that would be an assumption to go towards. If it did happen, though, I would be worried.
There's more of the double, like, the Zen BAP, right? If that becomes really strong on certain maps, they're in trouble there. What if Ashe becomes strong again? Like, do you think Pine's just going to come out of nowhere?
Yeah, but we've had these concerns all year in terms of there being serious holes in their roster, and there are serious holes in their roster, but they've been able to patch it up. Like, we're talking about the downward decline of Dallas, but don't get it wrong. They're still hands down the best team in the West this year. The 2021 season has been theirs in the West.
It has.
Yep.
But I don't know. I feel like eventually, like doing what they're going to do, like you're going to get got. Like eventually, like you're going to end up in a spot where you're just not going to be able to get out of it by, how they've kind of gone through the year. And maybe I'm just completely wrong on that. But
do you think that do you think the Countdown Cup was the cross section of Dallas downwards and Gladiators upwards? Are they meeting? Are they about to cross section and now it's just postseason in the opposite direction?
So you have Dallas over Gladiators if they meet in the playoffs?
If I was to place money, if I was to place money on like average placement or something, then I think Gladiators would be quite a risky pick because I don't know exactly which way they're going to oscillate. Dallas is an easy bet, mate. If I'm betting money on a team to go deep, Dallas, Atlanta, they got my cash. Gladiators is like, I'm expecting good returns to bet on them because they're a great bet to like go super deep, but they could just take your money and run.
I think Atlanta and the Gladiators are just as good, if not better than Dallas.
Okay. I think it's
going to be spicy. Power rankings later.
Yeah, I think those top 3 teams in A are way closer now. And maybe they've been way closer all year, but the Fuel have just had the Fuel magic to kind of get to Hawaii and make deep runs. But
yeah, they definitely got the best playoffs performance out of any of the Western teams.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on for a moment though. Let's talk about Chengdu before we talk about some big picture stuff again throughout the league. So Chengdu, they've made 3 stage finals. That is the most out of any team this year, tied with Atlanta, Dallas, Shanghai. So, all right, Dallas, Shanghai fans, I know your team wasn't trying, they're trolling, whatever, shut up. It's still a draw in terms of most stage finals appearances. Chengdu made 2 of the finals, 1 losing to Shanghai and now 1 losing to the Gladiators. Do you think this was their best opportunity at making it deep, at making something of themselves this year? Are they going to fade into the history books now that they let this slip through their fingers?
This was their best chance.
Yeah. I mean, we're yet to see like how they'll play next year, right? Maybe they get more chances next year. Reiterate on this roster, it's a great roster. It's been a great year for them. But with the hero pools, Shanghai and Dallas, taking, step off the gas, you kind of have to feel like Chengdu were the favorites and they should have won this one. Instead, it's the Gladiators. I think that was a bad beat for Chengdu Hunters.
Johnny's talking about next year's. He's already eliminated them from the playoffs.
I know, that's what I was going to say. Is that
he's
you're
already
talking
knocked them out of the playoffs.
But
I mean, stage title, not championship title.
I mean, I agree that it was. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's rough for them. They don't have an opportunity at stage title, but it doesn't matter if you end up going super deep or winning in the championship. Do you feel like this is the kind of team that could redeem the fact that they weren't able to win in the Countdown Cup with some kind of crazy run? They end up beating the Gladiators the next time around. Like, what do you think the trajectory of this team is?
So, do you? I mean, you talked about average playoff placing. I think I have Chengdu lower than like the Gladiators, of course, because they just got beat. But
I would agree. I think that Chengdu benefited massively from these hero pools as well.
Yeah.
I think getting any kind of like rush back into their game is a killer. They love trying to play like the 3 heroes that Gaga likes to play the most: the Ball, the Winston, the Orisa. I mean,
Late Young had a great tournament as well.
Is it odd? I feel this is gonna sound really weird.
The world stood still when he drew that shot there. That was crazy.
Even till movement looking like me in the talent takedown, just slowly floating in front of someone's crosshair.
Hey, thank God we're not breaking down the talent takedown. This episode would be 12 hours. I feel somewhat similar about Chengdu and Seoul, but I feel better about like Chengdu because I feel like both teams are relying on like their damage dealers to just like fucking pop off and just go crazy. I think I feel better though about the pieces around Leave and Jinmu currently than I do around the Prophet and Fitz. So that's why I kind of think Chengdu has a better chance. But like, I kind of would rank them. They are a complete wild card, right? I mean, who the fuck knows? I would say they're like somewhere in the middle of like, you know, the Dallas Gladiators, Atlanta, Shanghai, uh, type of teams where like could I see something like the Chengdu Hunters lose to, you know, one of the teams that qualifies, whether it's like a Fusion or somebody like that? Absolutely. I could also see them just not do shit like play Orisa ball with fucking Widowmaker and make the finals, like, and just play.
I guess part of what I'm worried about as well is like how much better can Chengdu realistically become?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
some
true.
of their members could definitely step up. You know, if Jinmu brings out a nasty Sombra, that could be a big difference maker. Sideshow mentioned Gaga's Wrecking Ball earlier, how he dies quite a bit. Maybe you shore up that a little bit. But like Monk is sick, Late Young had a great tournament, Yveltal is already sick on the Brig. Leave obviously is like fantastic. So like how much could this roster improve as we're seeing the Gladiators play the best Overwatch they played all season? You got Dallas and Shanghai. Um, it's almost like I'm worried, I guess, that Chengdu Hunters are not being figured out, but teams have kind of, you know, gotten the gist of Chengdu, what it means playing them, how to prepare against them. So at this point, I don't think a lot of teams are as scared for Chengdu as they were perhaps at the start of the season when they were so unpredictable in their playstyle.
You say that, and
Yeah,
it's
go on,
like
Matt.
what, like all their players are, you know, really kind of hitting their peak, and it even just kind of meta wise, like what could possibly be better for Chengdu? than
Right. That's what I was going to
this?
say. Is
Like,
if we're talking about like the theoretical playoff meta shift that we often see, you almost couldn't get a better one for Chengdu than this meta right here.
unless they got a fucking unless somehow Jeff Goodman is huffing the Chengdu juice and just fucking buffs Genji or something like that, just gives Jinmu just
Yeah.
like a fucking
Genji
fat
Tracer.
Genji.
Yeah,
That could be crazy, but I
maybe.
mean, I don't believe we're headed in that direction.
I don't. I mean, I would be stunned if
I
we
guess
end
the
up
easiest
somewhere
answer
like that.
it's just like if Jinmu gets like an insane Sombra. I think that could like realistically help this team out a lot. And Jinmu's Sombra, I guess it's okay.
It's pretty good.
Statistically, it's actually one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah. I feel like Sombra stats are pretty wonky though. It's one of
I
those...
mean, Johnny gave a fucking stat this weekend. Let me tell you.
Okay,
What was
Trade
it?
pistol
It
up
was
time.
pistol up time on Tracer.
What? What does that
He's
mean?
like, he's
what
like,
I was
Leave is the
trying to
best
say.
pistol up time. I was like, excuse me. I was like, does
What
that
I was
mean
trying to say was that I was really mesmerized by observing Prophet's Tracer going into this weekend because he's always up to something. Like he's always doing something. Either he's diving deep with Fitz in the back line on the back of Fitz EMPs, or he's shooting tanks, or he's taking the Tracer duel.
Right.
Like he's so proactive and so efficient was what I was trying to say with Prophet. Like his Tracer is so efficient. He's always doing something. And so then I on the broadcast, like I'm just ranting and I say, like, yeah, Prophet has a great pistol uptime. Like he just shoots people all the time. But I was just trying to say that, like,
We're
while you
about
look
to
at
come
some
to me
people
and
like
mention. I
Hepster,
was just like, what the fuck did he just say? I was like, pistol up time.
no,
Is that a real stat, by the way? Did you look it up?
No. It's not a real stat. I just
You might
made
be
it
able to
up.
track it. Like literally, if we asked the stats wizards behind the scenes, I don't know why they'd waste their time on this, but in theory, you might be able to track like how often. Because what you're essentially saying is he's shooting his gun a lot compared to like
Yeah.
zipping around not doing much or
Yeah.
setting up for fights. He does more
I mean,
fighting and less setting up.
He's more proactive.
Yeah, I've said that already, Matt. Thank you. But some Tracer players, like Snillo, is the complete counter opposite, right? Where Snillo just like
He's not even in the fucking league.
He doesn't have any pistol up time. He's out looking for mushrooms in the Swedish woods.
Okay.
His issue was pistol up time. He's not in the fucking league.
Do you have do you like hard erase your brain like a hard drive every year or what? You can't remember 2 years ago when Snillo was in the league and went for flanks all the time?
Yes,
I
can
would
completely
probably
erase
try and
that?
come up with a more relevant comparison.
Well, I mean, okay, what's a tracer in the league these days that just sneaks around corners and like just waits
Bladder
to
does
pounce?
a little bit of that, where he tries to
Yeah.
very heavily set up for fights before they begin, and then he's
Crystal.
efficient with finishing them.
Oh my god.
Who else? I
It's
don't know.
Mulan Run is the tracer player for
Valorant.
Valiant. That just tells you how much Valiant Matt has watched this year.
Oh, I look when I load up the schedule on the website. Those games aren't even listed. I don't even. Some of my websites messed up. They don't list any of the
Hide this
Valiant
team.
games.
He's got into the back end. No, I understand what you mean. All right,
Yeah,
let's shift the conversation along though. One of the biggest. Oh wait, no, sorry. Just one more thing before we. No, we're moving on. We're moving
my
on.
God.
I lied to you all. Okay, the next topic was one of the biggest conversations that come out of this. So that was the final game of the regular season. There are no more regular season games, which means everything that you've seen so far in the season, that's all of the data that you can use for MVP, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, all of that shit. The postseason is different. The postseason results are not supposed to be counted for those awards. So all of your decisions and all of your modeling of the games should have taken all of that into account at this point. Leave versus Lip is the biggest conversation that's happening so far. Some people are fucking throwing Shu's name in there as fast as they can because of that nuts play and the rest of what he's doing. But
yeah,
most of the serious conversation around MVP is between Leave and Lip. To start with, let's answer the actual topic that's listed here. Are they the two leading? What would you say to someone who says, you got to think about Shu, or you got to think about Pelican, or you got to think about Kevster? What would you say to those arguments?
I mean, Kevster's not even in the running, mate. He's not one of the top 10, so good luck with that. Even though, of course, he had a great stage. I think there are some other names. Like, if someone came up to me and they were like, I kind of value like what Flera brought to the Shanghai Dragons this year. I'm like, I'd pat you on the head, but I'd be like, okay, I get it. Like I get where you're coming from. Sparkle brought tons of flexibility to the Dallas Fuel, was able to play that tracer in the main melee that really helped them out to secure that stage shuttle. Okay, I get it. Fearless even. I'm like, okay, one of the best main tank players in the world, the best wins in the world. I get it. But personally, I think Leave and Lip are the two leading MVP candidates. And I think if you vote for someone else, tough. I'm sorry. I think that's kind of tough.
The tough argument, I feel like.
Okay.
I mean, Fearless was like clearly like the runner like at the beginning of the season.
Fire.
He's on fire. I mean, the guy is literally on fire.
Is that because he's rising so fast? So he's like, they've put some blue flames behind him.
Yeah.
Sure. I would say it's probably Leave and Lip. I think Leave has just been, he's been so good. I think people kind of throwing Shu's name in there. I think if the Gladiators had made one of the other tournaments, even if they made two of them and won one of them, I think you could make a really good argument for Shu.
Sure. He's had a great year.
I think though, like with how Leave is played, Chengdu obviously playing so much around him and then being able to make 3 tournaments, I think has been really impressive. I mean, Lip is really fucking good as well. I mean, it's a shitty. This is what sucks about MVPs. Only one person gets it, right? I mean,
yeah. I can tell you, I've locked in my MVP vote already. I made the decision the day after watching the finals and the rest of the Countdown Cup. To me, I considered it for a moment. It was between Leave and Lip. I locked one of them in. I want to hear if you two have as well, and who you went for if you've already locked it in.
I have not, but I will take a day or two to like go through the stats. I promised I was going to go through some VODs as well, Leave in the June Joust, because people tell me that Leave popped off and Jimmy was at fault for the June Joust performance from Chengdu. I just want to double check it with my own eyes. I'm torn. I am torn. I do think that I think Leave has surpassed Lip for me now. But I just want to double check before I put the vote in, because I do feel like there are many ways to look at this, right? Leave has obviously had the most impact, I feel like, for his team compared to Lip or what he has done for Shanghai, because you have Void, you have Fleta, you have Fate, Sayaki, and Lee Jagon. Like, there's just a stacked roster, right? So I think Leave in comparison, he's done the most for his team as an individual. And if that's your definition of the MVP, then like, sure, go ahead. Just throw that vote in. Leave has done the most for his team individually. But like Leave has played at such an incredible level. I think he was great last year, but I think he even stepped up this year for me. The way he played Tracer in the main melee, took over for DM, playing some of the longer hit scan stuff for Shanghai Dragons after DM kind of flopped the initial weeks. I just Lip had 3 consecutive stages where he just like fucking pounded, and he was like one of the best players in the world, and arguably like the best player in the world. And I think 3 stages in a row, you can't just like glance past that and be like, well, Leave, the past 2 stages, Leave has really popped up for the Chengdu Hunters. I mean, don't get me wrong, Leave was good in June Joust and May Melee too, but I think that Leave was on a different level for like 3 months for the Shanghai Dragons. Or 3 stages rather.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning Leave as well after how he played in the last. I if they would have went out early, I probably would have went with Lip. But the fact that they're able to battle it back and he played pretty strong towards the end. I also like. I guess this always comes down to people's like interpretation of like MVP, right?
Yeah.
Because I look across Shanghai and like my fucking lord. I mean, they got Izzyaki. They have fucking. I thought Void should have been the MVP last year, right?
I agree.
But you still have. But you still have Fleta, right? Who was the MVP last year? I mean, you're obviously you shouldn't really be penalized for the talent around you, but it's very difficult, I think, to stand out head and shoulders above people in that regard. And it's also, I think it's also easier to see somebody like Leave's impact on a team like Chengdu, where there's been some tough games in APAC, right? With like Hangzhou's been good at moments, Philly, Seoul, Shanghai. Like without him on the fucking team and playing the way he is, I mean, who the hell knows where this team would be? I don't think they would be in 3 tournaments this year. So
yeah,
I guess that's kind of like where I tend to think about MVP is not necessarily the best player on the best team, but which individual player had the largest impact on their team to have that team, whether it's perform where they expected or to overperform. I think Chengdu's probably overperformed this year, and I think Leave's a big reason why.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty fair. Listen, if your definition of MVP is the person who, without them, the team would have the most radically different record, it is very difficult to vote for anyone else other than Leave. Because if he isn't on that Chengdu team and they replace him with even someone else who's very good, like let's say, I don't know, Fleta, last year's MVP, that team is still not doing anywhere near as well because Leave plays a hard carry kind of style. He happily takes resources, responsibility onto himself and goes and delivers results. It's like a very obviously important role that he fulfills for the team, and he pops the fuck off. I can tell you that I didn't vote for Leave though. I voted for Lip. Even after Leave's performance.
Right. That was a bait.
Yeah. Because that's not how I define MVP. I don't define MVP as like one person who, without which, the rankings would be wildly different, even though that is a very valid metric. And if that is your criteria, then that's perfectly fine as well. But it's a deliberately nebulous, subjective thing, MVP. You don't just do it based on stats. You don't let fucking an AI generate your MVP for the end of the season. Otherwise, it'd be Hanbin. And Hanbin doesn't fall into even the other definition of like, if you replaced Hanbin with Void, Dallas would still be perfectly fine. Even though Hanbin is excellent. Even though Hanbin might be the best flex tank that we have, off tank, whatever, in the league. If you replace him, Dallas is still doing perfectly fine this season. Like Fearless and Void would be nuts. They were nuts last year on the Dragons. The reason I went with Lip though is because I think not only does he fit the categorization of an incredible player that's done enormous amounts of work for his team, like the Tracer, the Ashe, the Sombra, all of those things he was the best at when he played them. Not only has he done that, but the team also plays around him. And when I think about MVP, I don't just think about people who are irreplaceable on their team. I think about people that define how the team plays, which is why I think of Fearless more so than Sparkle when I think of MVP, because I think of a player that that is literally your team is built around them, that they define how you play, how you take engagements, you feel happy giving them resources. You can be a great fill player, but I don't feel like that is normally as important to your team. So when I look at Lip, the whole of Shanghai this year has revolved around him. It's been about how his Sombra gets value. It's been around him picking up the Tracer at the end of the main melee. It's been about him picking up Ashe at various parts and just immediately he gets the resources and goes and kills people. Like, the biggest one is his Sombra. He's easily been the best Sombra in the game. I mean, since 2020, but he's still been the best Sombra of this year as well. He's defined the style that they're the most excellent at, the Tracer Sombra kind of stuff. And it's not Fleder that's creating advantages for them. Fleder finishes those advantages. The advantages are created by Lip. And then Fearless and Fleder are fantastic at following up on them. But I've got to give the credit to my boy. I've been calling him out for so long. I can't not vote for him now. So I went with Lip for MVP, but I think it's a crazy close race.
I think,
Yeah.
I think it could literally go any way, right? With these two, I think either one you vote for is a really good pick.
Yeah, I would not be mad if Leave won it in the slightest. I think that's also a fantastic season for him. Generally, ridiculous. All right. Regular season power rankings. Let's get on to our next topic. I believe we just have to touch these up a little bit from last time because we're at the end of the Countdown Cup. I think the last time we did them was at the end of the Summer Showdown. Was it? Does anyone remember? I think.
Yeah, I think we do them after the tournament.
You sure?
I think so.
After Summer Showdown, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we did them before the Countdown Cup. I think we just did them after the
we just did
tournament
them one
cycle.
stage, yeah.
Now, I think there's a pretty interesting point here related to Dallas and Shanghai. Do you punish them in terms of taking them down the rankings at all for a stage where they didn't perform up to expectations, but for obvious reasons that they've said they were taking it easy at the end of the season? They'd already accomplished all of their goals.
I think so. Yeah.
You still think you knock them down the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to base their entire ranking based on their qualifier and specifically Dallas Fuel's knockout match against Shock. That was a travesty. I'm not going to base it entirely on that, but it certainly plays a part.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. I think that's different to how most people would approach it. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think most people would say to just kind of remove that from the case. And maybe you can, like, I probably feel better about leaving Shanghai where they are as compared to leaving Dallas where they are.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But that's just my opinion. I think you can, like, Shanghai, they win 2, they make the finals of 1. Like, Dallas has been, trending more towards non-qualification or like in that direction where can you make a case for Chengdu above them or Atlanta, who have also been to 3 tournaments? I think you can.
See, okay, go on, Johnny.
What are these rankings? Are these power rankings going into the playoffs, or are we just assessing the regular season?
The whole of the regular season. I mean, weighted, again, this is the way that we've been doing them so far, is that you weight recent stuff slightly higher, but it's still over the course of the entire season. So you still have to take into account that Dallas won the main melee, for example.
Okay,
but to less extent because it has less predictive power than their most recent performances in theory. But their most recent performances also, I don't think, have that much predictive power because they were literally taking it chill.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to extend the timeline that far, then okay, I'd agree. Let's keep it Shanghai, Dallas then, because then I wouldn't move Dallas. But if we're just basing like the past stage or like past stage and a half, then I think I'd want
everything after that. I think is movable though. Like,
yeah,
who's been the third best team of this year? I feel like it has to go to Chengdu, right? Even though they lost both of the stage finals that they were in, they made it. And no one else has.
Would you say Chengdu, Atlanta, then the Gladiators?
Yeah, I think Gladiators winning this stage final. Did they go 3-1 or did they go 4-0? I think they went 3-1 in the regular portion of the Countdown Cup, right?
Them in Atlanta.
They lost to Atlanta, right?
Them in Atlanta have the same exact win-loss record and the same exact map count for the entire season, which is kind of bonkers.
That's wild. I'm sure the league would have had chaos trying to pass them from each other if they'd had the same amount of league points as well. Yeah, I think it has to be the Gladiators. I think winning a stage title probably bumps them from 8th to 5th. I think it's a big
especially
jump, but It was a huge
The
achievement.
Justice and the Shock both haven't even made it to Hawaii, and Seoul made it once and just bowed out fast.
Yeah,
You kind of have to put the Gladiators up there.
yeah, I would agree. Yeah, pop the Gladiators into the number 5 position, number 5 position. I would agree with that. From then, I don't like it, but it feels like you have to give it to Seoul because they made the stage finals this time around. But it is easier for the APAC teams to make stage finals. They only need to win a single game against decent opposition. They're still playing against Philly. But to me, most recently, I feel more excited about the Shock heading into playoffs, even though they didn't make it this time around. That Shock Gladiators game was extraordinarily close. They totally could have somehow managed to win that one, make it in, and then we'd be having a completely different conversation here. I think Shock, I'm excited for them heading into the postseason, but on the balance of their whole record all season long, maybe Seoul still get the edge. The eye test would tell me that Shock deserve the spot, though.
I mean, they're pretty much identical, like throughout the entire season, outside of Seoul making this one tournament. So, but I think you could argue that the Shock play in a tougher division, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
the
would.
Shock have. I'm just looking up some matches as well throughout the year to see like how competitive they were with the other teams. Shock did beat Dallas Fuel at one point in the regular season. They've beaten Atlanta. They've beaten the Gladiators. Like those are impressive wins. So like they didn't make a stage playoffs, but they were consistently around the knockouts and beat top teams in the Western region. Seoul Dynasty.
They beat Shanghai once, didn't they? I think they beat them like 3-2 this stage, which again,
no, they lost. They lost to Shanghai 2-3.
Oh, they lost 3-2. Yeah, they threw it away. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. But wait, this graphic is so confusing. That I'm
Like how many of their losses?
They beat Chengdu. They were competitive against Chengdu. I think them and Chengdu went like 2-2.
Yeah, and I think they've only lost this year to Chengdu and Dragons.
Yeah, I think they lost to Chengdu in 2 knockouts. Oh, is that right? They lost. I don't know, but I think they won 2 regular season matches against Chengdu. But I think that was it.
It's
It's
a tough one. I mean, I feel like you have to give it to Seoul just based on making a stage final, but you've got to also understand that the stage finals are not equivalent between the two regions. It's easier for a good team to make it to stage finals in APAC than it is in.
I mean, who did Seoul play to make it to the APAC ones?
Philly. They played against Philly, and Philly were looking good. So it was still a decent result to be able to get in, but they were kind of like, trading matches back and forth.
I feel like Shock has been consistently like great. I mean, so is Seoul. They're 12-4 for Christ's sake. But I feel like Shock has been more of my time.
You can make an argument for both, because you can make an argument that the Shock had the same exact record in a tougher region playing against better teams overall, or Seoul had the same record and made a playoff. Depends on what you value more.
Yeah. Well, what do you two think? Who do you want to put where?
My gut says Shock 6 and Seoul 7.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
All right, excellent. The Shock simping continues. Reddit will be pleased. Okay.
Oh, yes, that will be exciting.
I think the Shock should be 3rd.
It's a bit of recency bias as well. Like, I think that Shock magic against Gladiators, like, goddamn. That was...
Sure, yeah. Good. I mean, that final game was...
Who the fuck goes here? Is it... What are your choices? Outlaws? Is Fusion an outside shot here?
I mean, Fusion have definitely increased their stocks, having done well in the Countdown Cup, but they didn't increase them enormously enough to go into 8th.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston is still 11-5.
Outlaws had a pretty disappointing second half of their year. They went 7-1, and they finished 11-5. So they went 4-4 in the end half of the season.
They did have a tough schedule.
Yeah. But if you're that caliber of team that goes 7-1, you're expecting to win more of those tough games. You're not expecting to drop them all. But I think probably their season has been better than Justice's, right? I mean, Justice have had some catastrophes.
I mean, they've just been abysmal at times. I think for me, you're looking at maybe like Outlaws, Paris, Toronto, Philly, like those type of teams here.
Yeah,
I
Philly
go
really.
with the Outlaws.
Outlaws.
Outlaws 8, I think, is the easy choice. Then I
Yeah.
think it gets
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, you might. I mean, let's put Outlaws in number 8. What's the conversation around Philly though? Because they did. What they went? Did they go 4-0 in the Countdown Cup, or did they go 3-1 or something? They did. They had a great record for the Countdown Cup, didn't they?
They finished 3-1.
Right,
3-1.
3-1.
Didn't they go 4-0 in the May Melee too?
Yes, they did. Yeah, but
Then
they
lost
had a
to
tragic June Joust and their summer showdown.
They
was
had a
shaky
bad
too.
they had a bad middle of their season. They went 2-2 in the June Joust, and then 1-3 in the summer showdown.
Oh, yeah, it was even worse. Yeah.
They lost to Chengdu Hunters, if I remember correctly, in the no, it wasn't the Shanghai. I remember it being like a 5-map series in the May Melee knockouts game, and everyone was like, "How did
That was to
Philly
Shanghai?
go?"
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Philly against Shanghai. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
that was like their peak, I guess, and then Countdown Cup was their 2 peaks.
I think.
Yeah.
I think Philly is in the conversation for this 9th spot. I definitely think that they've overtaken New York, Boston, Spark at this point, so they're minimum 10th, or minimum 11th, I guess.
Toronto goes 5-3 over the last 2 tournaments.
Dude, I can't believe in the Defiant.
Same with Paris. Paris goes 5-3 as well.
Yeah, but I swear Paris and Toronto had some of the easiest strength of schedules all year. Here's a challenge, actually. For anyone at home who loves doing like data analysis and making cool graphics and shit, if you can make a...
Somebody did the strength of schedule.
Wait, did they? For the whole season?
There's like 3 different ones, mate.
Yeah,
like
where it actually had the Gladiators as the tough. It actually had the Gladiators as the toughest opponent in the league.
Wait, what? How does that make any sense? You mean Gladiators had the toughest strength of schedule?
No, that like when ranking, I guess like wins and map differential and everything else, that the Gladiators over the course of the entire season were the toughest team to play.
I don't understand that. I don't understand how they formulated it. Would you be able to put a link to one of them for Kurt to be able to bring up?
I'll find it.
Because that's something that I was really interested in. Because certain teams played, like Paris, for example, got half their wins from playing London and Vancouver. They got 4 wins from playing London twice and Vancouver twice. That is an extraordinarily easy schedule compared to some other teams in the league. And I feel like when we're talking about end of season power rankings, that's something that is useful to weigh into the conversation when we're talking about like, should they go 8th, should they go 9th? You know, those small differences. That's an important conversation. I just haven't seen the graphic.
So like here, I guess the average strength of schedule. This is like a Baroy who made one.
Ah, okay. Baroy works for Toronto, doesn't he? Oh no, he used to work for Toronto. Now he works for.
He said strength of schedule via
now?
double opponents in NA. Strength of schedule had huge implications not only on monthly tournaments but play-in seedings as well. He mentioned that Florida and Gladiators got screwed, I guess, because Gladiators are at 4,700 near like the top of the spectrum, and Florida as well.
Right. So this is
and then
the people that you got twice during the season, because the way the season worked is it was just kind of random who you got twice. Everyone played everyone once, but some teams you had to play twice in order for it to work out. So this is like, were your opponents crazy difficult that you played twice? And so it's London, Florida, Gladiators, Vancouver, and then Shock. And then the easiest was Paris. So they had the easiest strength of schedule. Then Toronto. So yeah, the 2 teams that we're talking about, Paris and Toronto, had the 2 easiest strength of schedules.
And then
in NA.
somebody else made one.
And God, sorry, Matt. Washington are 3rd easiest, and they still had that wank of a season. I mean, what the fuck, dude?
I put this other Reddit thread in there, but somebody made a different chart. Had like an adjusted strength of schedule and then like raw strength of schedule. Where Florida actually had the toughest strength of schedule, with the Rain having the second one. Shows you how good that the Rain were. But
so how have they what's the adjustment? Sorry, can we scroll up a little bit here? What is this?
Well, like if you went by the raw, right? Like the teams that got fucking dump trucked probably had the toughest strength of schedule because they suck. So like the Valiant,
right,
Spitfire, but then like kind of when you adjust for
So this is like you've already taken into account that Florida had had really tough opponents, so you assume that they're slightly better than their record indicates, and so that's the adjustment. That's interesting. So who had the easiest?
And then he said some things that the fans may raise an eyebrow at. This calculation considers the Gladiators to be the hardest team to play, but the Fuel and the Dragons ratings fell off quite a bit during their sandbagging era.
Right, I see. Interesting. Okay, so let's take a look back at our power rankings again. And the teams that we had, that we were looking at were, for this number 9 spot, I think the teams are Fusion, Toronto, Washington.
I think there's some recency bias with Toronto because they looked kind of good against the Reign in the knockouts this couple of weeks ago. But I do think Fusion is probably...
It's got to be Fusion, right? Is there any
So
other team?
the Fusion and Toronto had relatively similar strength of schedules. It's actually funnier that Seoul strength of schedule, like they had a worse strength of schedule. Toronto, I guess, had a harder schedule, and then Paris. Yeah, like you mentioned, Paris is 16th out of the 20 teams in the strength of schedule because they played the Titans and London twice.
Yeah,
right?
Which is crazy. It's crazy. It really is. I mean, who even takes 10th here? Is it?
When do we talk about Hangzhou?
I mean, I guess now. Hangzhou and Justice had a pretty similar season, I feel, where it was very underwhelming. Except, to me, Justice at least had flashes of brilliance. The Spark had none.
Hangzhou went 4-0 in June Joust, and they went 3-9 the rest of the season.
It's tragic. That was when Spark was just when Shy was just popping the fuck off in the June Joust as well.
Do you have to just put Paris and then Washington? But what do we also think about Boston? Boston finishes with a strength of schedule like pretty much right in the middle.
Well, what was Justice's record? What did they end
9
with?
and 7. 9 and 7.
9 and 7. So they're like one ahead of Paris. Oh God!
Toronto is there too.
What does Toronto have? 9 and 7 as
Both
well.
of them had
Toronto's 9 and 7.
schedules.
Yeah, and both of them had really easy schedules.
I mean,
to
dude,
me,
the Justice had an easier schedule, and they have more talent, and they only finished with a +3 map differential. Like, it's so tragic.
It really is. It's been an awful season for Washington. But the only reason I'm considering putting them above some of the others is that they did occasionally throughout the year have moments where they looked great. I don't feel like there was ever a game from Toronto where I thought, damn, these guys look like they could be top, 3 in the West. Yeah. Whereas Justice had those moments. They also had moments where I wanted to rank them bottom 2 in the West. Literally them and like Vancouver or them and London. So
Toronto's biggest wins of the season is the reverse sweep against Atlanta Reign in week 1. Okay, that's their biggest win of the season. Apart from that, they've beaten Vancouver twice. They've beaten London twice. They've beaten Florida Mayhem.
Who is that?
3-2.
That's Toronto.
They beat Paris 3 times. And they beat Washington Justice in stage 4.
Would you go Washington?
Dude, they've literally only beat Vancouver, London, Paris, Mayhem, and Washington Justice in stage 4.
All right, so Justice then probably 10th.
I mean, and they reverse swept Atlanta at the beginning, right? So that's
would you put Paris?
Washington has beaten Gladiators. They beat Dallas Fuel at one point.
Yeah.
No,
but also, that's kind of a bad thing too, because imagine getting those wins and then also fucking your season everywhere else. Like, is it better to beat good teams and lose to terrible ones? Or is it better to just lose to all the good teams but beat all the bad teams? Which one's better?
Okay, so who did they lose
know.
to? Was disappointing.
Yeah.
Washington got 3-0'd by Boston. They lost to Shock, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Gladiators in a row.
Yeah.
No, not in a row. What am I talking about? They lost to those 5 teams. Those are tough teams. Shock,
they are.
Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Gladiators.
Yeah.
Apart from that, they lost to Toronto, Boston, Paris, Florida.
Yeah.
And that was Florida
Those
when they
are
were
all
good.
awful losses.
I mean,
Those are all
No,
awful.
that was Florida when they were good, like in May Melee. So
Oh, that was in the May Melee. I thought that was recently. I thought they played against each other in the
yeah, they
Carolina
lost
Cup.
to Mayhem in the knockouts. Remember from May Melee?
Right. Yeah, they did. Yeah, I remember.
Um,
I don't fucking know, man. I feel like there's a top 9 in the league, and then as soon as we get to the 10th, I'm like remembering the
flip
bad.
the fucking coin.
It's
I'll go. Okay, what if we go Washington here? No, I mean I feel.
Is
bad
it
just for that.
Washington, Toronto, Paris?
When
It
do we
might
talk
be.
about New York? New York made it to Hawaii once, and they looked good in the countdown.
They didn't
Cup.
look good in Hawaii, though. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
They got
That's true, that's
rocked.
true.
They got rocked.
Yep.
They
They're
were
fucking-
physically present. That's about it.
They were worse than Seoul were in the countdown cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. They were.
I think it's Philly. No, I actually think it's Justice, Toronto, Paris.
Justice, Toronto, Paris. Okay.
And then is it
Hangzhou, New York?
Hangzhou had
Bro, Hangzhou was so fucking.
they had one of the hardest schedules, I guess.
Yeah, let's
after adjusted.
Okay, sling up Spark, NYXL, Boston in that order, and let's just think about whether that looks wrong. Because this portion is so difficult to actually rank on top of each other accurately. But for example, in this situation, you've got the teams listed mostly by win record, right? You've got like 9-7, 9-7, 8-8.
Okay.
Washington, Toronto, Eternal. But I feel like Eternal had more promising moments at times.
This is, I think,
than
is
Defiant,
fine. This, I think, is fine. And New York above Boston, they had the same record, but New York made it to Hawaii.
Okay, here's the thing. Looking through Hangzhou Sparks matches this year.
Yeah.
In the June Joust, right? That's when they
Yeah.
were good, right? They beat Shanghai 3-0. Shanghai was amazing. They beat Chengdu Hunters 3-1.
Yeah.
Apart from the June Joust, I mean, we're beating a dead horse here. Their wins come against Guangzhou 3-0, Guangzhou
Tough team.
3-1, Valiant 3-0, Valiant
tough.
3-0, and New York 3-2. But
Quality win.
that quality wins in the APAC region, Franco Spark.
Okay,
But
who did New York win against,
They
though?
played New York 3 times, and they're 1-2 in the head-to-head.
Yeah.
Oh, they're worse than New York in
And New
the.
York
I think
made it
also
Hawaii?
the point of this as well is to weight the later results slightly higher. I feel like
True.
NYXL should be better than Spark. I think the latter
Yeah.
half of the season looked better
them
for
up.
them. I think we moved New York. We flipped New York and Spark around here.
Yeah. Also, are we like a bit NA biased here, not rating New York?
No, we're never.
Okay, I'm
biased.
just asking the APAC fans. They're gonna be rabid.
No.
Well, the APAC
no.
fans can. The APAC fans can claim that NYXL are better than Paris all they like. I think there's no way of really knowing. Like those teams are firmly middle of the pack. Middle of the pack. There's no great argument for any of them being above anybody else. I feel like maybe I'm just a Toronto hater, but 11 feels high for them. To be honest.
I'm more interested in what happens here at the bottom.
All right, let's get onto the bottom then.
Toronto,
16 through
yeah,
20th.
it does feel high. I feel wrong putting Toronto there, but you know.
Yeah.
The He's is least. He's. I don't know. The He's is least. What could you?
You
say
speak for a living. You speak for a living, and you can't even say the He's is lease.
Sorry, I got so excited talking about the Valiant and the Titans.
I feel like there's a pretty clear 1 through 5. There's a pretty clear 6 through 9. There's a pretty clear 10th through 15th. And then there's a pretty clear 16th through 20th. There's like tier breaks in all of those places.
Can we put Florida above Guangzhou?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they deserved it. I think Guangzhou...
Why are Florida not about Boston?
Mate,
Bro.
the mayhem...
Any team that subs in a DPS player to play tank automatically drops two spots.
I mean, they went on an
Boston
8-match
lost to
loss
Vancouver.
streak, didn't they? Yeah, Boston did lose to Vancouver.
Oh, they did get
But
the
also,
Rio.
Boston had a couple of good upset wins.
Yeah, no. You can't convince us on this.
Okay, what is Boston Uprising's peak this year?
When they beat Houston with that like Genji dive comp, I think that was probably their best look.
Yeah, they beat Washington 3-0 in June Joust. Then they beat
Yeah,
Houston
but Washington looked
3-0.
awful then. Washington looked dreadful at that point in the June.
Was London better than Guangzhou this year?
See, here's where I think London got kind of shafted.
Finishes.
London did have a really tough strength of schedule, and they had some good moments, but I don't know. They
had the third hardest schedule in the league.
Charge looked more competent over a larger period of time.
Who did the Charge beat this year? Did they beat the Valiant twice and then New York twice?
They beat Spark once, I believe,
once?
recently. Listen, the Charge have not had a good season. No one's pretending they have, but I think they've had a better season than London.
Actually, yeah, it's fucking dreadful. I mean, Guangzhou's won 20 maps where the Spitfire and the Titans combined only won 22. I mean,
yeah, I mean London barely managed to get their first win of the season against the other team.
It was dog shit, right? And then on a high note,
the Valiant won 2 maps, bro. 2 maps.
It's tragic. It really is.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Bro, they won 2 more maps than me and Josh's Talent Takedown team.
I'm gonna ask a question that's unrelated to the power rankings.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, if an investor came in and bought the LA Valiant, do you feel forced to rebrand or not?
What do you mean?
Do you have to change the name?
I don't think so.
I think the Valiant would immediately gain back the goodwill of their fans if they just did a 180 in this offseason and just picked up either a good team or local talent. I think they will still be sour, but people would just appreciate players being given salaries rather than anything. I don't think you need to rebrand. Listen, if they continue to stay in APAC, they absolutely should rebrand, but why would you? I mean, this season has been a catastrophe.
And they will be the Beijing Brens, and we will start Bren every game.
Hey, that's a good brand.
Bren will also
I'd be a supporter. I'd buy the
That-
jersey.
You wouldn't be able to get the trademark. There's already an esports team called Bren Esports. They could participate in the Philippines. They just qualified for the next Masters event for Valorant. When we are doing a Valorant co-stream, we're gonna be looking at a team called Bren Esports. I wish we had that in Overwatch. Man.
Why are they called Bren Esports?
I have no idea. I don't know who
They're from
Bren is or
Thailand,
why
right?
the name is Bren, but they're called Bren Esports. They're like a really big org from the Philippines as well. They have teams in like, what's it called? Like Clash of Clans. Yeah, mobile game kind of events. Yeah. And they're pretty big. They have a big fan base. There they are. Look at them.
They have a bigger fan base than Bren.
Incredible.
Oh, they're founded by Bren Chong. That's why they're called Bren Esports. That's quite that's good. Yeah, that's quite vain, isn't it? You're naming the whole org after yourself. It's like if I just made Josh Esports. Hey, do you want to play for Josh.gg?
We should, as Plat Chat, just fund like a random team in a random game. Like, just spin a wheel of games. Like
Garena Free Fire and just
hey, let's get a Crossfire team. Like, let's just get a fucking Plat Chat.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with our regular season power rankings, though. I think we kind of nailed that. I think we've nailed that.
I mean,
apart from the middle portion, which is hell on earth. Jonathan's heard an earthquake or something rumbling in the.
I have the weirdest dog barking outside my window. It's like a puppy, but it's like the most angry puppy I've
just heard it.
When we look at these rankings, all right, we said coming into this year it was going to be the most competitive year ever. And I, from watching the games, would agree with our take that it was. When you look at the rankings, though, there is a big difference between like your 1 through 9, something like that.
I have my hand over my monitor that's covering from 17 down. And that's super fun. Everything above that.
Where do you feel like? Do you agree with that original take in the preseason that it was going to be the most
I do.
competitive season ever? Did it
I
feel
do.
like that?
Yeah, because even in years where we've had like shitty teams, they've been able to like win a few games outside of like Shanghai season 1. But like if you were bad this year, like there was no fucking chance. I mean, you are barely getting maps. I mean,
Yeah.
it was fucking tough out there if you were just not good. And I even think you saw teams like Florida get punished, right? And like Austin, like I mean, these teams in like any other year with their rosters probably would have been pretty solid, like up there. But just like even the teams that we were unsure about, right? Like the Justice and Philly, like, you know, those teams any other year are probably placed pretty high, even with this like level of like play and inconsistency where this year teams just got punished. I mean, they just got pummeled if they were bad.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our stage tier list. At the end of every stage, we've been ranking them in terms of entertainment, enjoyability, fun. I don't fucking know words like that. Countdown Cup. Where does it go?
Buzzwords, yeah.
Production value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Entertainment
Sure.
value.
Dude, the production value in terms of the advert breaks were fantastic.
Oh
I
my
love those,
God.
by the way. I loved watching Jonathan drool all over himself with a snorkel. That was a
Oh
personal
my
favorite.
fuck.
I
Jesus.
kind of wanted to put this.
Where does it go?
Is it with the Summer Showdown?
Where did we put the Summer Showdown?
In A.
Oh, in A
Okay,
tier.
so let's talk about it for a bit then.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the best stage ever. And I mean, especially with Dallas and Shanghai like easing up. I think that definitely affected like our approach to the stage and how we talked about it. We're like, okay, well, Dallas and Shanghai, they're taking it easy. But it was overall, I thought it was a very entertaining stage. Sometimes for the wrong reasons, like Washington Justice being fucking dribbles and not being able to play Sombra, the Memps, like that was so entertaining. So even though it maybe wasn't like the best stage in terms of like gameplay, hype, it was a really fun stage, and I really enjoyed watching the Countdown Cup.
The
And it
games were
ended up
sick. The playoffs were pretty fucking awesome too.
yeah, but like I don't think
And-
we're gonna go back and be like, hey, remember Countdown Cup? It's like
And
people
we
were
had
like
some
playing out of their
fucking-
minds. Like we had some fun games.
We had some
great games.
bangers of
Shocked
memes.
Gladiators. The playoffs were even though Seoul disappointed, Atlanta got double 3-0. It's like it was. I think it was a good stage.
We had a Titans 3-0.
Oh
for
yeah, the Bread Bowl.
Uprising. We had the fucking Bread Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, Bread Bowl was fucking. It was like one of the more viewed fucking matches of the stage. I mean, people fucking were dying for the Bread Bowl.
Yeah.
We had breadsticks like 2 times this stage.
True,
And
true.
the playoffs were pretty sick.
I think it goes in the B tier personally. I think
Okay.
you can't get any higher than the B tier when it's at the end of the year and Dallas and Shanghai are deliberately taking it easy. Like I don't think that you
Fair.
can ever get to an A tier or an
There it
S
is.
tier
Oh.
tournament. In fact, I was thinking about putting it in the C tier until you said those things about the regular season portions of the matches and like how fun it was to watch Philly get back good, for example, and like the Vancouver Titans storylines and London getting their first win and that kind of shit. Like, yeah, what do you guys think? Do you agree with the B
Valiant.
classification?
I would actually say that I think I would put it bottom in the A list. I actually do think so. I
Really?
will remember this stage for fun reasons.
You think you
But
can?
that's just
You think it's A tier despite the fact Dallas and Shanghai were both not trying to get to Hawaii actively and like they deliberately stopped scrimming as much?
I mean, it's so subjective about how you rank the tier list, right? Like I don't know
of
what your
course, of
motivations
course.
are.
Yeah.
But
you would put it bottom A?
I felt from an entertainment standpoint, and that's what it is at the end of the day. Yes, we're competing, it's high stakes, see the best of the best. It's an entertainment product. And
Yeah.
I thought this stage was very entertaining.
All right.
I agree.
Matt, what do you think? A or B?
A.
All right.
Bottom A.
It gets locked in the A tier. There you go. I feel like what I've noticed is that the 2021 stages all got ranked higher than when we were doing the ones in the past. It's like it is a recency bias. Like you remember the good stuff more easily, and then if you think back to like 2018, 2019, you forget some of the good stuff, so you don't rank them as highly. But
I also think like
all right.
I think the format's been better this year, which is like given us better games consistently. I mean, I think just having tournaments for the whole year as opposed to what like started them halfway through the year last year, right?
Yeah.
I will say, to your point, Josh, I can't remember why we ranked Summer Showdown so high. I'm like, what was great about Summer Showdown? Dude, you watch so much Overwatch and you work Overwatch for this long, like it just blends together.
Wasn't
And
Summer
then you have to,
Showdown
like,
the
like fucking
7-game?
dig deep
That was
in
the
the dirt and,
7-game
like, pull
series
out
between
everything you
Dallas
remember.
and Shanghai.
No, that was June Joust. I mean, the Summer Showdown was Shanghai playing against Chengdu. It was Chengdu Farah, and it was like the crazy adaptations and all of that stuff. Can anyone stop Chengdu's ball comp, etc., etc. It was a good tournament, but yeah, you always rank things higher coming straight out of them, I feel.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, all right. We have another big topic to consider here because this is our opportunity to gas ourselves up. Someone posted a Reddit post where they compared all of the different preseason predictions, right? And they looked at them and they analyzed how many spots were different, how close did people get, what was the analysis.
Did ours rank number 1?
Yes, it fucking did.
It did?
Number 1, baby. Number 1. Matt wasn't involved, and that's why it was number 1. Oh, no, he was involved, actually. You were there, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, sorry. That was needless shit talk, actually. That was so unnecessary.
Of course it was fucking smart. The time that I left it to you, Custa, and Johnny, all we got was fucking some stupid whiteboard. I mean, look at this. I mean, we're so smart.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely still got a lot wrong, right? Interesting, actually, to see the average at the end. I wonder whether the average was smarter or dumber than us. So if you scroll down a little here, it says difference in North America. So this is how many placements you had different compared to their accurate ones. Fun. And so someone managed to get North America a little better than us. But we kind of fucking nailed APAC. We had APAC nailed down. And so it boosted our overall ranking. So
this is just proof
for NA.
That we are the best podcast
Who's the middle
ever.
one?
What, you mean the one that had 40, the gold standard? I don't know. Can you scroll up a bit, Kurt? It's the F column. Nerd Street Gamers apparently had the best ranking of NA.
Really? Oh, okay, I see. So 56 was the worst. Okay, 56 was worst. Okay,
yeah, it's 40. The lower numbers are better. They've highlighted them in gold, the people that did the best.
Okay, all right.
Interesting as well to take a look at that and see that people's averages were worse. Like the wisdom of the crowd is just worse than having people that know what they're talking about, perhaps. And they have some overrated and underrated teams there as well at the same point. Most overrated, Mayhem. Yes. I mean, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Most underrated, we had the Outlaws. A lot of other people had Rain, I guess, and Chengdu. But Outlaws and Hunters, yeah, I mean, that tracks, I think.
Yeah. We're not, it's not a fantastic ranking, but I think we're pretty consistent.
What do you mean? We're the best fucking ranking out there.
True.
Yeah, it's still pretty shite, but it's all right.
Theoretically, the best would have been to get it all.
I even included books for fun.
Yeah.
There was also people
I do want to give a shout out to Costa because I feel like without Costa, we could have potentially messed this up.
Oh, did we have Costa for this episode?
I think Costa had great opinions on the power rankings.
Yeah, Costa really helped us not underrate Atlanta.
Only
something else as well he fixed for us. I can't remember what it was.
The only thing I would change with ours is I would probably put books for fun above the Valiant.
Yeah, never read a book in his adult life. Would still rather read a book than watch a Valiant game.
Yeah. One of those long books, the one that Amazon's making a series about. Is a Wheel of Time. Don't you read that shit, right?
Yeah, Wheel of Time is fantastic. If anyone out there is looking for a fantasy series,
just wait for the show.
Wheel of Time is so
just wait for the show.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that as well. It looks like a good adaptation. There are people that split it between NA and APAC. They didn't blend them together, so they can't be ranked in the same way. But we still won on that one because they just divided ours in two. But there's Bren's, by the way, as well. So there's Plat Chat, and then Bren, then Avast, then Jaws, then Avril. A lot of people made separate rankings of the regions, and these are very entertaining to look at too.
This entire section of the show just to legitimize our pick.
Yeah, we're gassing ourselves up. Fucking A, we are.
Holy.
I mean,
people say we're all jokes.
People.
They just say those Plat Chat guys, they're only got a big show because of their charisma, because of their banter, because they're funny. No, we got the brains too, all right? And here's the fucking proof.
Well, we actually weren't the best at NA or APAC, but we were just the best at both combined together.
Which is important. Because
the
people out there that are like, oh, Plat Chat doesn't watch APAC. Well, here's the proof. We do.
Bren literally had the best rankings of APAC.
To know what it's going to be like.
We didn't even have to watch it to know what was going to happen. We already knew. Yeah, I mean.
Bren literally got it exactly correct, apart from Dynasty and Hunters were the other way around.
No.
And he admitted on the show last week to not having watched any of it.
He said he hadn't watched any APAC from that week, not any the entire season.
He had never seen APAC. He didn't even know he had an APAC broadcast.
I mean, look at the difference between Bren's NA and Bren's APAC. He got 42 incorrect in NA and 2 incorrect in APAC. Look at that fucking ranking. That's madness.
Justice at number 2.
It's absolute madness, isn't it?
You're Defiant at 5th.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy as well. I can appreciate Wolf though going with Eternal in last place as well, just even below the Titans. Everyone else has just got a guaranteed.
Did anyone not have the Valiant last in APAC?
I don't know. Actually, can you scroll down a little bit? Valiant. Everyone's got a point. Yay!
Who has Hunters? 2 people have Hunters. Wait, Avast? Oh my god. And who? McGravy. Oh wow.
Yeah, McGravy also had the Hunters as second last. Yeah. Pretty. I mean, I think most people.
Okay, we bragged about us being good. We don't have to shame other people.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. That was poor manners. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
These are always interesting though. Most overrated and most underrated, I feel, are very interesting. So you've got Mayhem. Fusion for us, we overrated, but I think that makes sense because we deliberately said we were ranking them as if they had their main roster. So I feel pretty fine about that. And then who else? So Charge getting overrated quite a lot as well. That makes some sense. NYXL getting overrated based on the Scrimbucks quite a lot. You can see there. And I guess Fuel getting underrated by a lot of people. I mean, the Scrimbucks at the beginning of the season were that Fuel was going to suck. So, yeah, interesting. People get lost in the sauce.
People say they don't come here for the analytical content. That's literally what we provide.
Yeah.
We started this show off of the backbone of analytical content.
Yep. Keep telling yourself that.
And we've kept that. We kept that, yeah.
Let's move on from gassing ourselves up. We get one topic a day. The playoff bracket has been released. We have a playoffs bracket. Now, some of the teams, though, still have yet to select their opponents. But we can still see where people get input into the bracket. Jonathan, did you have some graphic or something about this? I saw you posted something in the Discord.
It was his name escapes me.
Yeah, I mean so
Corey, the guy who does the frag movies?
Right. Yeah, SI not found. Carry.
SI not found. Wait, is it Corey or Carry?
It's Carry.
Sorry, I apologize. Sorry. I think he made this one. So to start off, the graphic is a bit misleading because obviously it says that APAC leads into the loser bracket. It does not. That arrow it's supposed to mean that they go into the selection phase in the upper bracket, of course. And also Atlanta is missing because they're 5th seed. And so they're one of the teams that can be selected by the Dragons. Fuel Hunters and Gladiators. And that's how it's going to work. So the top seeds for each round, they pick their opponents until we get to the actual bracket. So Justice get to pick between Paris and Boston, and then Shock get to pick between the winners of the earlier round. And then once we get to the actual playoffs, Dragons get to pick their opponent first, then Fuel, then Hunters, then Gladiators, and then we go. So some notes for you.
The play-ins are happening next weekend, right? It's not this one coming up. It's the weekend after that.
Yep.
I assume that the teams will have to select their opponents fairly shortly, right?
It's announced on Wednesday.
Oh, has that been announced that it's happening on? Is there like some
I
show
believe,
or something?
if not, then I leaked it. I was pretty sure they said it on the post show.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
so we said it on the post show, I think.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Is there going to be like a Watch Point episode? Have they talked about that? Did you mention that on the post show?
No, I think
it's just getting tweeted out or something that people have picked their opponent. Okay. Obviously, we can't do a bracket prediction until then, and we should do one next week for that.
Yeah.
But we can talk about who people should select, who we think is the right choice for that.
I mean, I think obviously the biggest selection here would be obviously Justice on the clock of who they pick out of Paris and Boston. I imagine they're going to pick Boston, right?
I think that would probably be the right pick, but yeah, I think that would probably be the right pick. But I don't think there's I don't think there's a huge difference between the two teams in terms of their quality.
Didn't the Defiant just play Paris in like a really tough big game as well? Didn't it go 5, right?
Defiant and Paris have done a back-to-back. They did it the last one of the last games in the regular season.
Potentially, they could play 3 matches back-to-back.
That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's back-to-back, but it is like there will be 3 of the 4.
Defiant had a match in between there. But yeah, I mean, I think you would definitely favor Justice over Boston, right?
I mean, in theory, you should favor Justice over anyone they select, but that just depends on whether you get good Justice or terrible Justice.
Right, and in only a 1-game scenario, you can't really there's no bouncing back from bad Justice.
No, there isn't.
I guess APAC is a little bit more straightforward. Do you see Fusion being able to win 2 in a row and get in?
They could do, but that Fusion Seoul game is so hard to call. Like they've been dead even with each other. When Fusion's been playing well, they've been even with each other. So I'm still anticipating we see the good version of the Fusion because they've had time now. Their backline looks good. They're integrating Shockwave. Like they actually look like they're doing some major development with the roster. But even at their peak, they've still only been about as good as Seoul have.
If Seoul lost that game, that is a rough season.
I think, I might actually predict Fusion in that one. I think Echo comes back into the pool. Lucio comes back into the pool. They're a bit better at playing that faster, aggressive style. I think that helps them a little bit. While I think that Seoul kind of excelled in this meta as well, being able to put creative on the Zenyatta, play slow with Animo. I don't know if they'll be able to do that as well against Lucio and Echo teams.
Who does Shock select? It says Shock opponent select. Who do they select between?
They would select between the
winner of
winners
both
of the first
6
2
and
rounds.
7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I see. Okay. That's all going to be interesting. I guess we just have to wait until next week to start doing some bracket Preds.
I mean, you could end up with a sick, like, you know what? You'd probably potentially be looking at like a Shock versus like a Defiant or Paris, and then Outlaws versus like a Justice if you were going on like favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to try and figure out who would be actually in there. It's also hard to be able to tell who people would pick when it gets to like Dragons, Gladiators, Fuel, and Hunters picking people, because I imagine they're going to pick based off form of like who looks scary coming out of those qualifier games. You don't really pick based on their regular season record or anything.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on then. We'll save that for next week. And the final segment is the most important segment of every week. It's, of course, Bren's Player of the Week. And I have consulted with Bren this time. I promise you all, I have genuinely consulted. No, I haven't. I haven't talked to Bren. I haven't talked to him. I don't know what his thoughts are on this, but he's an idiot if he doesn't pick this player, I think, because me and Bren seem like we always end up just randomly, luckily catching these crazy clutch plays. And EQO's insane Dragon Blade play from Rialto, that was the last time I've seen a clutch this good. The Shu play from Havana in map 7 to be able to win the Gladiators the title. Now, I said when I tweeted it out, that may have won them the title, like that play alone, because I also think that they looked like the better team in general, and so I think the Gladiators still had a great chance of being able to win that map, even if Shu had not gone fucking crazy there. But Shu locked it down with that play. So this Bren's Player of the Week goes to Shu. He's a nutty flex support player. One of the greatest clutches that we've seen in Overwatch, especially from a support role. He just took that team fight into his own hands, destroyed 4 players, and in the biggest map he's potentially played in, I guess Shu played for
he won a stage title with
Charge.
Guangzhou
So
last year,
he's
didn't he?
won a stage title, the Summer Showdown with the Guangzhou Charge, right?
That was APAC only though, so he beat the Dragons pretty much.
So I think this is a little bigger actually.
Yeah.
I mean, just the amount of players who were able to leave Guangzhou this year, right before things got bad. I mean, Nero's had a good year for the Shock. You've had Shu have a really strong year. MVP candidate for the Gladiators. Happy is looked good.
Yeah.
On the Outlaws.
I also think that this now begins the conversation, or not begins the conversation, but it pushes the conversation along about Shu in terms of being the best flex support of this year. He's been top 3 all year long. I mean, when people have talked about the best flex supports, Shu normally gets in at, that 3rd place kind of slot. I feel like at the moment he's pushing that ahead, at least the number 2 behind Izzyaki. And if you're talking about recently, I mean, he made it way deeper. He's shown way more in the last month because the Dragons were kind of taking it chill. Heading into the postseason, this guy has a serious shot of ending the year, I mean, postseason included, as being the best flex support. He does have that available to play for.
Yeah, I mean, he has that potential as well, right? Where the Gladiators potentially like hitting that, top form with him, whether it's on the BAP or the Zen. I mean, we always knew he was so talented.
Yeah.
Like, even when Guangzhou wasn't really good, I think it was the first year they were in the league, you still could watch him play and be like, this guy is sick, but the team just couldn't do anything around him.
Yeah.
Then last year they looked pretty decent at times, right? And he looked better, but this year playing with this crew, you've really seen him kind of unlock his potential, which I think also is like you can now look at, I mean, not every player on like a bad team is going to be Shu, but not every player on a bad team is necessarily bad. I think Overwatch is one of the hardest games to actually just stand out on an individual level.
Yeah.
Where, you have some of these players who have been on rough teams. I mean, fucking hell, Fearless was on the team. Yeah, I mean, this play is just unreal too.
Oh no,
I
it's
mean,
not. It's the next team fight.
right? Yeah, the next one.
I mean, it's like you said earlier.
Oh no,
Josh,
it is this team fight. It is
yeah,
this team
this
fight.
just goes forever.
He
Yeah.
builds up 40% of his ult, and then he flanks. He's in like the 2v4. He just pops down his window, melts Gaga, destroys Late Young, kills the Blade as well. I mean, that is bonkers. That is phenomenal.
I gotta
stuff.
see that shit from his POV.
I quote tweeted Kurt the play, and it's like it's a different clip from his POV. Someone went in the replay viewer, looked at it from his point of view. It's bonkers. I don't know how he killed Jinmu, by the way. I don't know how the hell he manages to get like the tracking on Jinmu as he's flying through the air, pulling his blade out and stuff. That's ridiculous.
I mean, yeah. As you said, it's not only this play, right? Because it's this play, and here's the actual clip from first person.
God, the Halt as well to save him from Muse as Muse dies.
So he's 80 health, pulls out the window, kills the Orisa, self-heals, breaks the mech.
I mean, and he kills. It's like time slows down as he kills the Genji.
It's crazy, yeah. So it's this play. And I mean, I know it was last week, but I'm going to say it again. The play against the San Francisco Shock in overtime on Havana. And we still need a name for Shu on Havana that's, catchy.
Yeah.
Because that's his map now. He's made
Havana
it
Shunana? Is it something like that? No.
They said it on the Watch My Post show, and I was like, oh my God.
What did you say?
No, I hated it. No, I don't have a name. I'm asking the community. Make up something.
Because he's also, I mean, Shu was known for sleep darts as well, and he hit some nasty good sleeps.
Yeah, on Anubis. He did it on both times, right?
Yeah.
He did it in the first match against Chengdu. Didn't he do it again?
He had great Ana plays in the final as well, but I'm particularly remembering the first time around on Anubis.
Yeah. I mean, what it's unfortunate. You feel like if they make another Hawaii trip or two, we have that conversation that we had earlier about Leave and Lip. He's right up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I like about Shu as well, I think he could he has that kind of attitude as well. Like if you ever watch his stream or read his Twitter, like he has a bit of that like kind of like fuck you attitude, and I just
Yeah.
really love him for it. He know like he's so good at the game and he knows it, and he's gonna flex it, and he's so confident in himself and his ability to make plays. I just love watching players like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
No, I mean, he's an absolute boss. All right, that wraps things up for episode 101. We are going to put out a member Q&A next week. If you are a member, then we'll put out a community post. You'll be able to respond to it. That'll be coming out next week. Next week, we'll do our like predictions for the bracket as well, and maybe have a guest on and chat about that. I don't know whether Avast will be available, actually. I think he's still getting settled into Florida, so I don't know whether he's going to be around and be able to join us back on the show, but we'll get him back in whenever he's available. And that does it. We'll catch you again for episode 102.
Well, speaking of members,
members.
Speaking of members,
new members,
got to welcome some.
I have
Who
to
are they,
read them.
Kurt?
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Okay. I have to read them off because the graphic I had broke last week, so I'll have to remake it. Anyway, we have Clay Bradshaw,
Welcome to member.
Kamasi,
Welcome to member.
Charlie Not Charles with the tier 3 membership,
Welcome to Giga member.
Yeah.
Julian Miller,
Welcome to member.
Nathan Loon,
Welcome to member.
Mitchell Crane with the tier 2,
Welcome to large member.
Oh, yeah.
Melissa Huber,
Welcome to member.
Welcome to member.
Ryderas, I should say. Ryderas, welcome to member.
Welcome to member.
Welcome to member,
And the Shark.
The
Welcome to
shark.
member.
Is that
Welcome to
the
member.
shark from the advert that was chasing reinforcing
Oh my
that stuff
God.
around?
Welcome
Possibly.
to member.
Welcome to member.
Welcome to member.
And like I said, keep your eyes out for a community post that'll be out there. You can give us hot takes, questions, stuff like that, and we'll get around to it. We're definitely booking it in for this week. Got fucking accountability. We're doing it next week. I've got to remember. Okay.
We should have Kurt at a podium be the representative of all members and ask all of the questions.
And what? It's just Kurt. It's just Kurt on a podium speaking into the microphone.
He is king member. He is the leader of the members.
Before we go, I believe this is the last episode. We are donating all the proceeds to Rain. Next week, we will have the grand total of all the money we've raised through our YouTube channel towards Rain.
We'll donate it from Josh's bank account live.
Okay, why would it come out of my bank account and not the company's bank account? Matt's trying to get away with some.
Company will reimburse you. Company will reimburse you.
Economic finagling there. Also, another mention just on that topic as well, Kurt, is that one of our viewers, Patrick, has agreed to match that donation as well in support towards Rain.
Hell yeah.
But I said I wasn't able to confirm the amount because we have to wait another week to see kind of what the revenue from this episode is. But next week, we will be able to announce the amount. We'll be able to already convey that information to Patrick, who's very, very generously decided to match that donation. And so that money will be going to Rain, and we'll post something probably on our Twitter about it and talk about it during the episode.
Yeah, big shout out to Patrick. Big fan.
Yes, huge thanks to Patrick as well. And if any of you are interested in making your own donations, please go and check out rain.org, the #1 sexual violence organization in North America. They help deal with the survivors of violence like that, and also education for establishments and companies and that kind of thing. So pretty useful. And we'll see you for episode 102. See you then.